could have a career as a rapist.
What?
74, 65, 61, 6D.
That's number one.
Oh, imagine that being a Monty Python joke. Do you have your own cross, or would you like one provided?
Well, I don't know. Like, Jamie could be a fetishist for all I know. And, like, I'm not going to judge him for it much, but at the same time...
Well, yeah, but yeah, I guess, yeah. Me be you heathen bollocks. I feel like I always end up being the villain in my own stream. Hello, everybody. It's us doing a podcast.
Are you?
No, of course not.
Are you? Because I need to start recording.
Of course I'm not recording. Why would I be recording? Can't have this indelibly recorded for everyone to hear. I am now.
Just. What am I hearing? One sec.
Me.
What am I hearing? Fucking skateboard kids.
Fucking kids.
Fucking kids on their boards being skates.
All them kids boarding around outside. Get off
Disgust-
my lawn.
Get off my front property.
Get off my property. Jonas, you used to be them skateboard kids. What happened, man? What happened?
I have put 2 feet on a skateboard, like what? Definitely at least once, because someone bought me a skateboard once when I was like a teenager, thinking this is what them kids.
Cool kid.
This is what them kids do. And like, I don't know, I tried the skateboard and did like a 180 kickflip, like twerk maneuver, and then I put the board away for the rest of my life because I couldn't peak.
You pulled off an amazing trick.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then I peaked. That's because I peaked. I knew that in that moment that was the coolest I was ever going to be.
Tony Hawk clapped.
Yeah.
Bam Margera gave you a thumbs up.
I'm
just throwing out all of the skateboarders I know.
You named more than I know.
I only know them because they're both characters in the games. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
I was going to say, you named more than Tony Hawk, and that's the one I know.
Hello, Rick. Hello, Old Man Sanders, and hello, Regensham. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This will serve as a great accompaniment to a session of Factorio. Love a bit of Factorio. Haven't played that in ages. What a good game. All right, we're going to get started in a moment. Can you all hear both of us? Before we just talk for 2 hours straight without stopping.
Can you all hear all of us? Can you all hear both of us when we talk? And more importantly, can you hear us when we're not talking?
I'm always a little quieter. That's just the way these things are. I can't solve that.
I specifically turned my microphone down for you, trying to accommodate your weak little voice.
I've turned mine up a little bit. But I end up in a situation where I end up then blowing out the podcast audio instead. So I don't know. I've always been crap at sorting out microphones.
I find the middle ground hard for either of us, because if I'll go low so that I don't get a bunch of background noise. But then I find myself like really hard to like normalize in the podcast alongside you. Your microphone will pick up like every noise in the house somehow. So if I
have a compressor set up for the stream, which I've managed to get it into what I think is a fairly good place. So you don't hear keyboards, all that kind of stuff when we're live. But that's not the audio feed you get on the podcast.
You're sending me the raw audio feed from your microphone.
Yeah.
Disgusting. I've started recording now, just so you know.
I have been recording this whole time.
This whole time? Did you record the bit where I admitted that I murdered all those people innocently in cold blood?
Were you innocent while killing them, or were they innocent? You murdered those people innocently?
Honestly, I don't know how to answer this, and I'm worried I'll implicate myself more if
I'm not wearing a wire. Don't worry. There's no microphones here.
Oh,
This is a
thank God.
closed Zoom call. No one can
Ah,
find this.
Brilliant. No one's gonna know I killed little Timmy with a butcher's knife.
Oh, little Timmy. Not little Timmy. He had so much life left to live.
So much life for such a little person. Tiny.
How did he fit it all in there? How did he fit so much life in such a small body?
We called him Little Timmy because microscopic Timmy was too much of a mouthful.
He was harder to kill. Microscopic Timmy was harder to stab.
Yes, why I insisted on using a butcher's knife.
Because that makes it easier to hit microscopic organisms.
Well, I thought I should have just used a shovel or a shoe. I don't know.
Should we do a podcast?
Yes, I suppose I should probably stop admitting to crimes and let's talk about media instead.
I've already written my TT for this one, and it is nothing. It's not inspired by the conversation we just had, but it will sound like it is.
Yeah, as I was doing that, I realized, like, man, I'm giving myself like a real strong like TT intro vibe here, but you haven't done it. Okay. Well, just for posterity, none of this is scripted. This is pure improv, ladies and gentlemen.
Your internet like freaked out, and you just went, "None of this is script."
I'm sorry about my internet, but you won't hear that lag in the audio copy, which is why you should absolutely 100% go to www. I don't know, Spotify.com.
You really launched into that. Like you knew, like you had a web address ready to go.
Well, you can go to www.buzzsprout.
You haven't finished a web address yet.
Spotify.com. Right.
Do you want to do a countdown for our timing?
Can I stop getting criticized? Yeah, let's do a countdown. The way that we're going to do this is I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then you're going to join me in counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Fantastic. Thank you for confirming. Thank you for consent. I love that. We need more of that on this podcast.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nailed it. Perfect.
I don't think we've messed that up since you like codified it. Since you set a rule for
it. Jonas, this is crazy, but you remember when you wrote down like a procedure? It's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Crazy how since we set up a system, we never just fly by the fucking like seat of our pants.
Yeah, I know, it's wild, isn't it?
Oh my God.
We plan things. All right.
It's like we know what we're doing.
Are we ready for a podcast?
Are you asking me, or are you asking the audience with that are never going to reply to us?
Everyone, but I'll go if you say yes.
Yes!
All right. Okay. Hello and welcome to this month's episode of the Bunyip Review Podcast. I am your co-host, James the Bunyip Man Willis, and I am here with my co-host, Jonas Tightrope Timmy Garway. How you doing, Jonas?
Now, clarify for me before I go into this. Did you say tightrope tiddy?
Timmy. Tightrope tiddy.
I heard tiddy, so I mean, had to know.
You can go with either, or maybe I'll store that for later.
No. I'm Timmy. I'm Timmy of the tightrope.
Tightrope Timmy with those fantastic titties.
They call me tightrope Timmy because but when I was born,
Timmy.
when I was born, I rather than being delivered into the arms of a patient midwife or trained medical professional, I actually found myself barreling out towards a thin tightrope, the only thing between me and a hurtling collision with the floor. And so I took the opportunity and I towed that bloody I was about to call it a zip line. What was it called? Tightrope. And I've never left since. I'm still on that tightrope even now.
I
Flawless.
just have
Flawless.
this image of a mother who's just like ready to give birth at just sort of the edge of of like a roof. It just launches out like a cannon. Well,
little did you know, my mother was in the circus and she was about to walk the tightrope that day. And
it
the
sounds like
circus
your
master
mother was the circus.
the circus master wouldn't let my mother go to the hospital to have me. He said, "No, you carry on with the show." And she was a professional, goddammit.
Well, we're very lucky to have you here, Tightrope Timmy. I know you're hanging out in there. I know you're hanging there, like on this tightrope. But do you think you've got enough sort of outside focus to do us some reviews while you're up there?
Oh yes, this tightrope. I have become such a master of maneuverability that the tightrope comes with me when I go to the cinema to watch films, and when I plonk myself down in the living room to play video games. So yes, I'm very well equipped for this media review show. Thank you for asking, James the Bunyip Man.
Timmy, it sounds like basically wherever you walk, you just lay a rope down in front of you and walk on it. That doesn't sound like a tightrope. That just sounds like a rope.
Well, James, I'm afraid during this audio medium is really perhaps not the best venue to disprove that theory. But believe me, if you saw me on the tightrope, you'd know it with your eyes that I am tightrope Timmy.
Well, maybe we can put some, publicity photos up on our Twitter at the Bunyip Review. How's that sound? So that people can really get a sense of what's going on.
Oh yes, please do. I could do with the publicity.
Why have you gone so gremlin?
It's hard times.
It's hard times on the tightrope. Do you know how hard it is to hold down a job up here?
No one takes me seriously.
All right, well, let's do some reviews, Timmy, and maybe we can bring Jonas back into the room as well.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah,
is he up there on the rope with you?
No, he's down there on the floor. I'll chuck the mic back to him. Yeah, thanks for that, James. That was fucking weird.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep inviting.
Why do you let him on the podcast?
They always, a lot of people talk about how like a good way to grow a stream or a YouTube channel or a podcast or something is to have guests. And I'm just trying things out, I'm just trying to collaborate. I'm just trying to, spread, because Tightrope Timmy says he has his audience and we have ours, and we just want to sort of intermingle them,
I don't know which is like crazier, the concept that Tightrope Timmy has an audience or that we have an audience for Tightrope Timmy. I love our audience. I love our audience so much. But
we did a survey, and the number one thing that came up in terms of interests was tightroping children. It wasn't even an option. They just put it in the other category. So many of them. It was weird. But yeah. Anyway, should we tell people? I mean, if you have come to this podcast through Tightrope Timmy, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where we review media. We talk about TV shows, we talk about games, we talk about movies, and every month we review a random movie from Netflix. I say review. We basically spoil and complain about a random movie from Netflix. This month's movie is called Magic Medicine. It's a movie about using magic mushrooms as a treatment for depression. But before that, we're going to go through a bunch of other things, reviews of things that we have brought today. I will be talking about Aunty Donna's Coffee Cafe. I'll be talking about Shadows of Doubt, the crazy new immersive sim game. And I'll be talking about Page 8, which is a spy drama that we saw on Netflix last night. And Jonas, what will you be talking about this month?
I'm going to talk about Double Fine PsychOdyssey, documentary covering the creation of Psychonauts 2. I'm going to talk about a video game called Dredge, which I briefly touched on last month. This is an indie game where you go fishing and there's totally nothing eldritch or like horrific about that. And the film I watched it last night in the cinema, is called Suzume. It is like a film by Makoto Shinkai, who does a bunch of anime, is a famous director who does a bunch of anime films, and Suzume is no different.
Excellent. But before we get to that, we like to do a little section at the beginning of the podcast sometimes called Rewind, where we talk about something that we reviewed on a previous podcast, but now there's something new about it, but not enough to do a whole new review, or one of us has recently finished it and the other one wants to talk to the person who reviewed it about it. And this month, we're talking about the TV show I reviewed last month called Poker Face. And at the time when I reviewed it, I hadn't finished it. And Jonas, you'd only watched one episode at that point. But now I believe both of us have finished it.
Yeah, I finished it as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And how did you feel about it?
I loved it. This is definitely going to be one of my favorite shows that I watched this year. Just because, yeah, like it's just got such an incredible, like, distinct flavor. Like every single episode is, as you said in your last review, it kind of like takes place in like these really strongly themed slices of like Americana, you know, like American set pieces that kind of distinctly make up like what that country is as a whole, with each of them covering like a slightly different like murder, but not so much a murder mystery, because you are shown the events of the murder. You are shown everything you need to know about the murder. And then the only thing left to do is kind of just like enjoy the ride of watching someone get to the same answer, the same conclusion, and normally trying to find out how they, in that environment, can kind of seek justice or retribution for the person that's been killed. And yeah, fuck me, just really cool. I have spent the last month just being like free marketing for that show, because no one I know has heard about this show. Like no one has gone, oh yeah, I've seen a trailer for that, it looks really good. People are just like, Poker Face, never heard of it, what is it?
Honestly, anyone I've spoken to about it, as soon as they actually go and watch it, I get a message. Like I'll mention it, and then 2 weeks later, I get a message going, "That show you mentioned is actually really good." And I go, "Yeah, it really is." And you know what's really surprising as well is it's not like it doesn't have amazingly marketable things about it, right? It's led by Natasha Lyonne, who has done Orange is the New Black and Russian Doll, both like incredibly well reviewed shows, right? It's by Rian Johnson, who made Knives Out, right? Not only really highly reviewed films, but mystery films, so you know he can do mystery. It's got Adrian Brody, it's got Ron Perlman, it's got just fucking everyone in it. It's the kind of film that you would expect to be on everyone's lips, and yet, like,
And yeah,
every time I speak to someone, they haven't seen it. And I think that is basically down to the fact that it's on Peacock. You know, it's on a streaming service that no one gives a shit about. And that kind of really sucks. Like, I think we're sort of ending up in a weird situation where, you know, early on, the things that sold like Netflix and Amazon Prime were their star shows. You know, Netflix had Stranger Things, Amazon Prime had American Gods and Man in the High Tower and things like that. And those shows were the reason you went to those streaming services. And now we're at the point of such saturation of streaming services where there's so many of them that actually it's a detriment to the show rather than a benefit to the streaming service. You don't go to Peacock because it has Poker Face. You just don't watch Poker Face because it's on Peacock. It's not the one you have. That kind of sucks, right? That really, really sucks.
yes. Like I'm sort of the same opinion, where it's like, man, HBO produces like all these incredible shows, but then their shows don't like easily become available to just other platforms, full stop.
Mm.
Like what I would always like with these shows is I would always have liked there to be the option to outright buy access to the one show I want
Mm.
without necessarily paying the subscription cost to the service that I'm not interested in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Even if it's more than 1 month, like even if it cost me like 20 quid to buy a series where £10 would give me access to the series, sometimes it is nicer to do the one-off payment to just have those files perpetually available to you than it is to like pay for like 10 months, that 1 month to open a door, but after that 1 month the door closes behind you and you've got to constantly re-up if you want to go back and watch a scene or
Yeah, I mean, but we all know that's why they do it. But we are now getting to that sort of phase of this kind of thing where that the whole system just kind of sucks. I mean, we just recently got an Apple Plus subscription again to start watching the new season of Ted Lasso, and we did it because we were like, well, we want to watch Trying as well. There's a couple of other bits and bobs on there, but we're going to cancel it when we're done watching those things. I, I you have to keep on that. You have to. It's now sort of an extra sort of mental load to keep track of all the streaming subscriptions. To us, basically, as a household, we've decided that Fairy has a Prime account, I have a Disney account, Laura has a Netflix account, and anything else we have to justify to ourselves, right?
yeah.
we have to say, okay, we're going to get this, and it's going to be an actual cost that we add on top of the house. And yeah, it's a shame because Poker Face is so good, and I've just put on here as well in our rewind. I've been watching the third and final season of Ted Lasso. That's really good as well. That's absolutely worthwhile watching. It's come back at full pace. It's just as good as all the others, and it's going to be the final season of the thing. And yet, of all the, I remember when the first season came out and everyone was raving about it, and I don't really hear anyone talking about Ted Lasso season 3. The usual suspects on Twitter, but other than that, like, people aren't going back to these extraneous services. It's basically just Netflix and Disney.
Yeah, and I'm not watching Ted Lasso right now purely because it's on a service that I don't like by default have access to.
Hmm.
So am I going to get that show? Yeah, I am. But it's either going to be I go out of my way to make an account for something I don't have an account to set up a payment system to something that I don't really want to set up a whole new payment system to. Like, I'd rather just click a button and redivert a subscription, like the Netflix money, to another. That's what I want. I want a website that's a switchboard.
And
And I put £10 in a month, and it just redirects the £10 to whatever service I care about in that moment. That's
Yeah.
what I want. Just
Well,
someone at the other end, like just pulling the plug out and putting it in another show.
I will say that while Peacock has, all the Star Trek stuff and Poker Face, I don't know if it's earned the like store things up and then do a bulk pay thing for me. But Apple Plus has Ted Lasso, Trying, and Severance, and
Severance,
so it
yeah.
may very well eke itself into the once or twice a year I pay for a month or two and I slurp up that delicious stuff. Maybe
That's what they've
maybe
got, yeah.
maybe the rule should be, for me at least, is whatever TV show that is currently holding best TV show of all time in the Bunyip Awards, that service is justifiable to pay for a subscription for.
That's what they have earned the
Yeah.
honor of. Like, wow, I can't. Severance is show of the year. Goodbye, Amazon Prime. You're no longer relevant.
Basically, what Poker Face needs what Peacock needs is for Poker Face to beat Severance in the Bunyip Awards next year. And if it does, it might be Peacock time. I'll say right now, Severance season 2 is probably going to come out before the Bunyip Awards. So I don't think Peacock's really got a chance. but we'll see.
But then when we're going to talk about like Severance season 2, right?
Mm.
But we officially reviewed Severance season 1.
Oh no, I'm not saying that it's the winner of the year, but you know how we have an
Right.
all-time winner,
Yeah.
and Severance currently is that.
Right. You think that we might re-up it off the success of season 2 because it reminds us why it's a good show.
I think that we're going to go through the year, and unless
It'll be
something
fresh in our minds.
mind-blowing comes out throughout the year at some point, I think that we're going to go into the Bunyip review and we're going to go, oh, Poker Face was really good, wasn't it? Had a really good style, really good feel to it. But we'll have just come off the back of seeing the end of season 2 of Severance, and we'll go into those awards being like, fuck, what's going to happen in season 3? Fuck, like that thing that we saw in season 2.
It's we're getting a new season of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, so maybe that's
I haven't watched the
maybe
last
that's
season. Like, I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I
yeah.
watched the first episode of the last season, and I was like, "That was fine."
Yeah, you know what?
And
And
yeah,
I'm not pretending like it is going to be the greatest show of all time. I just was trying to think of shows that I know are coming out this
can you
year, and that's
imagine
one.
if the next season of Always Sunny knocks Severance off the top of the list of all-time greatest shows?
That would be incredible. But also, like, I don't know. Sometimes when they get it right, man, they get it so fucking right. It's just that
Yeah,
they've done so much now that
that's true.
their average is like, yeah, pretty good, but their greats are fucking immense.
If we'd reviewed Always Sunny 5 years ago, it probably would be like sitting there. It would have a green box on it for winner of a year's
Of a
awards.
year, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, interesting. That was an interesting chat about Poker Face and Ted Lasso, which then became a talk about the state of the streaming industry.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, and just to clarify with you, I haven't started Ted Lasso season 3 yet, so I can't join you on a rewind talk there.
no, that's all right. I think that I kind of hoped to have started when it had finished, but
Mm,
we finished Poker Face, and I was like, well, Ted Lasso is the next thing on our list. We'll go on to that, and it's not over yet. I would say that you are perfectly fine to wait till it's done and watch it, because
that's
it's
basically what I'm thinking.
yeah, I don't think that episode to episode you're going to be like, oh fuck, that amazing thing happened. That being said, this season's been pretty solid. The first episode is a bit loose, but so is the first episode of the first 2 seasons as well. But then it just really gets into the groove of it. It's got a lot of nice stuff about, there's a really lovely episode where they go to Amsterdam, and it just has that real Ted Lasso feeling of um people getting into mental health stuff in really nice sort of metaphors, and sort of it just has that warm fuzzy feeling that Ted Lasso gives you that nothing else can give you quite the same thing. Yeah, well worth a watch when it's all done, I think.
Right.
I did have the odd
Nice.
moment of the other day of watching it, and I was most of the way through an episode, and I said to Laura, oh, I really hope they play some football in this episode. And like as in we actually see a game, and I was like, nothing has ever made me want to watch a football game ever. Like I really do not care for it. And I'm watching Ted Lasso, and I'm like, I'm hoping there's a football game in this episode. I was like, what has this show done to me?
You'll become a football lad.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to our actual main reviews of the episode. And this month, Jonas, you're up first. What are you reviewing for television?
So, I'm going to be talking about Double Fine PsychOdyssey. Double Fine PsychOdyssey is a 32-episode documentary covering the development of Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 2, as you may know if you listen to this podcast, is a video game developed by Double Fine. Development started in approximately 2015 and it released in 2021. During these 6 years, Double Fine hired 2-player productions, a videography sort of production company, to record as much as they possibly could about their in-house sort of development process. Everything from people working quietly there at their desks to like quite serious arguments and sort of matters of impasse during production meetings. All of them are like professionally recorded, and then all of that footage, so nearly 6 years of 9 to 5 recorded footage ends up kind of being cut and edited down to guide you through this complete development process of a game. And in that presentation, it kind of includes all the ups and downs of that development cycle. Now, I think in terms of video game development, I think this is the most important single piece of media available to like the public ever. When you watch documentaries on video game development, such as the ones done by NoClip, and the documentaries you see by NoClip are fantastic, but they tend to focus on like a specific skill, a level, or a problem, a team, a discipline. They kind of tell like a singular story that happened in amongst years of video game development on a particular product. And you know that so they're very specific. Where this product, like these 32 episodes, they're not trying to teach you how to do something. They're not teaching you how to solve a problem. They're not teaching you how to make a game. It just shows you a real process, and it's a process that is made up of so many moving parts and smaller processes. And what's important is you get to see the people that are part of those processes. You're given so much content, so much media that lets you just sit and watch these people as they come together day after day to work through their kind of like respective processes, all coming together to try and make the same product. And nothing short of actually being a member of that team and having a job in that studio could come close to imprinting the experiences that those people have had and those processes on you. But this documentary comes as close as it possibly can to giving you that. And it's not just like one long ride that starts and eventually finishes. Like, it's not that the 32 episodes are actually just like 7 hours of footage cut into 32 chunks. What it is every episode has its own kind of narrative, where every episode focuses on a moment, a problem, a person, like a major checkpoint in that game's development. Something that like heavily ends up defining Psychonauts 2 sort of from the background. One episode will focus heavily on the team trying to design like a single level for one of their characters, and it will just go through every single iterative argument, every single back down, every single concept that was followed through to a certain point and then taken back. And sort of how all the decisions up to a certain point end up like affecting that level or affecting like a particular person during that whole process, for better or worse. We watch people get hired and sometimes fired. I think one of the most there's a particular arc in this documentary which is super satisfying, where there is someone in that building who has never worked in the games industry before. And for a large part of the documentary, their job is nothing to do with video games. And at some point, they get the opportunity to pitch a demo, so like a mini game as part of a little game jam. And that becomes part of Psychonauts 2. Like, it ends up being picked up. It ends up being celebrated. They end up being shown how to work as a video game designer and like a level designer, to the point that, you know, by the point I'm at in the documentary, they're a full-time member of staff working on the game full-time, and their ideas are working. And it's like they've gone from never making a game to being one of the most important influences on Psychonauts 2. It's really fascinating. And at the core of all these events is the head of the studio, a legendary game in terms of video game development, Tim Schafer. And Tim's relationship with the project changes as time goes on. But through it all, Tim remains very much the leader of this project. And there's no single individual in the company who does not kind of like revere and respect Tim's vision of a great game. There is something genuinely heartwarming spending time with Tim Schafer as he reflects on events throughout the project. Not to mention, because of some of the voice actors that they use in that game, you also get to like see some quite nice sort of like treats of scenes where you get to see like Tim Schafer hanging out with Jack Black or Elijah Wood while they're in like the studio, the recording voice lines for various characters in Psychonauts 2. And it's very heartwarming because everyone's just very themselves about the whole process. I think it's worth watching sometimes just for those scenes alone. But I would highly recommend this to anyone who's just a little bit curious about how video game development like works. Like it's more than one piece of software. It's more than teaching a character to do damage to a thing or a singular art asset, right? And we all know that. Of course we know that. But this is a piece of media that truly and just like with absolutely so little of a filter lets us see the whole picture of a game's development and does us the good service of zooming in on the good parts to make it a really entertaining and engaging piece of media. Jamie, you're a fan of Psychonauts 2. I know this. What do you know about this? Do you know only what I've told you? Have you had a chance to kind of look this up in your own time?
I've watched the first 3 episodes.
Okay.
And it's really interesting. So this is something that we're going to talk about later on when we talk about the magic mushroom thing, or at least I am going to talk about it when we talk about magic medicine. But the idea of truth in documentary, right? And how really real you can get a view of whatever the documentary is about, and how balanced it can be. That's sort of the hand of the creator of the documentary. And you talk a lot about how you get a really good view of how video games are made, and I agree with that. I think that is the core good thing about this, or like the core aim of this is to give you a good idea of how something as big and as epic as Psychonauts 2 is, and to big up how momentous it's supposed to be. You see, them designing art, them like dealing with sort of keeping that Psychonauts vibe and all this kind of stuff, and creating what ended up being, I think we agreed on the podcast, a really great game. One of the interesting things I found from the first 3 episodes, though, is that the very nature of being filmed, I do think, changes the way they interact with things. There are moments of sadness or sort of interpersonal conflict which feels sort of weirdly muted in the documentary in a way that definitely feels like it's because they are being filmed. Like there are a few people who there are moments early on when they're making the VR version of Psychonauts where things aren't going that well, like the budget's not there, or people are getting taken off onto different projects, and then the lead leaves to go somewhere else, and it feels sudden, and it feels kind of weird. The energy feels kind of weird. The way that they talk about it in interviews feels kind of weird and vacant. And it definitely has this feeling of a documentary that's being made about these people, that they all know that their peers are going to watch all of the footage maybe next week. And that gives it a really interesting feel to it. I'm not sure it is as candid a view of these people as they might like it to feel. That doesn't make it bad. I think that's just the nature of making a documentary in the way that they've made it. This isn't hidden cameras. This isn't like, that kind of stuff. But there are some really nice things in it that come out of this style, which is whenever there's something positive and people do want to talk about it, they talk about it really candidly, and often they talk about it in very different ways to each other, and seeing the ways that different people of different seniority experience like communal events are so interesting. The one that sticks in my head is there's this woman, I think her name's Emily, and she's like an artist on the game, but she's involved early on in dealing with in the VR version of Psychonauts. And they keep having her in meetings, and she just keeps coming out with these amazing ideas. They're like,
I remember Emily. Yeah.
Yeah, she'll turn up with like a handful of post-it notes, and every single one of them will be an amazing idea. And then they interview her, and she says, I was just surrounded by these legends of the gaming industry, and I was really intimidated. And I just, I wanted to come with something. I needed something so that I would. And then you see Tim Schafer be interviewed, and he's like, she's amazing. Like, she's incredible. Everything she comes out with is brilliant. And that sort of like that view of a communal thing, a really relatable thing where someone is feeling imposter syndrome and trying to deal with that kind of thing, and then going away and talking to the two people involved in that, and then giving you, who knows how candid it really is. They know they're talking to a camera, but a fairly candid view of how that interaction worked for them, I thought was really interesting. Yeah, I think it's really cool. Do you think that because the episodes sort of vary wildly in length and they sort of meander a bit as well, do you think that the format works in their sort of like, you know, just whatever the episode takes kind of format, or do you feel like it would have, you would have rathered a more regimented sort of like half an hour episode documentary series?
Oh, I am so happy with the rambliness of these episodes. I think it's the kind of thing where they've clearly sort of decided that they have enough content here to focus on, like, every episode doesn't focus on one thing, but there is like a larger theme at play that informs the 2 or 3 stories that like each episode is going to talk about. So largely, like there'll just be an episode that just covers really heavily, like, and I think it's probably already been brought up by episode 3, but like level designers. Tim Schafer does not have a good relationship with level designers. He has classically not found them to be helpful in previous games because he already has a really strong concept of what he thinks the game should be. And so he finds that level designers actually conflict with that by coming up with their own ideas that he doesn't actually agree with. And so historically, level designers have been hired in Double Fine and then fired not much longer. And so they're hiring level designers in Psychonauts 2. And at several points, when they start an episode, it'll say, previously on Psychonauts 2. Yeah, Tim loves firing level designers. And then for the rest of the episode, you watch the level designers. And it's like, it's giving you this kind of like little twist in the heart where it's like kind of preparing you for something to go wrong. And
Yeah.
often it doesn't. And I think there's something clever about it where, like, no matter how much they meander or plod or pad, or they might have really short, succinct episodes, I think they always know kind of like what they want that energy of that episode to
There's a sort
be.
of pace to it regardless. Yeah.
Yeah, and they always use that previously segment. Well, especially once they get into later episodes. Obviously, there's no point doing it 3 episodes in. But, by episode like 15 or something, you'll just find that like they definitely want you to know a bit of context for what they're going into this episode with. So they'll just remind you of things that you've definitely seen in the first 14 episodes so that you can go into this episode with the right mindset to be told something new or witness something that you might not have seen coming otherwise.
What do you think of it? The view it gives you of Tim Schafer, because again, I'm not that far in, but I've already had a bit where they fired a bunch of level designers and things like that, and the way that the conversations are had around Tim Schafer, they're and I want to preface this by saying everything I've ever heard about him is that he's a fantastic guy and that he is a genuine genius when it comes to this kind of stuff. But the way that the interviews are done with him, he's quite sort of, he glances off hardships unless they're innately relatable. So he sort of glances off firing level designers and moves just straight into the positives of starting a new team with lesser people who wants to rise up, and only really delves into things like the money troubles of the company, which everyone can kind of relate to, this sort of shared struggle. And other people sort of talk about him as this, in quite reverent terms, as this kind of genius, but higher members of the team do go quiet a bit and leave at various points. What kind of view do you think it has of this man?
I think generally the that kind of phrase like camera is God. Camera is Tim Schafer in a lot of this. Camera is absolutely, it's his money, it's his product, it's his show, basically, right? Like, it is ultimately by his benevolence that any of this footage is allowed to exist and gets recorded. And so I think generally there is probably a reluctance for, anyone to talk negatively about him or to him or around him. And obviously Tim always wants, but this is also like, this is Tim Tim is doing this not because he wants to paint himself a hero, right? Like Tim is doing this because he believes that there is a genuinely good reason that this footage should be available to the public. Like he has made this entire development cycle like available to the public for free and made this entire documentary available for free because he thinks that there is value in all of this stuff being recorded and output, and it's kind of like his company philosophy that this should happen. And so I guess like with a lot of that in mind, yeah, a lot of it kind of like a lot of it is quite carefully nitpicked so that you never see a bit of footage of Tim walking into a meeting room and just straight up like harassing 3 people and punching a guy in the face. And if that did happen, would we see it? Or would people tiptoe about it? Would people describe it as, "Oh, Tim had a bad mood yesterday,"
This is
and
this
that was
is
it? You know,
yeah, this is sort of my wonder about it is especially with the sort of higher up people leaving. You have these moments where something clearly goes wrong, and then a higher up person goes, and now I'm moving to the north of the country with my family. And then there's a sort of stand up meeting. They go, oh, we're really sad to see him leave, but he's moving with his whole family to somewhere else in the country. And everyone goes, and he goes, yeah, I've really enjoyed working here, but I think it's time. And you're like, and I think that again, I
like
don't.
looking at Tim, and Tim's like holding up a board that's like, and that is like the script, like, and now it's time, and flipping down the pages
Yeah,
or something off
and
camera.
and I want to say this. I'm not saying that he's done anything wrong or that he's a bastard or whatever, right? You know, this is the same with any business, with any caliber of owner. People just sometimes don't get along or they don't work well or whatever. That's fine. But we have to understand this when we go into documentaries, that they're not crystal clear, like unbiased accounts on things, that they do have a lens that are putting on it. And it's interesting to see, like you say, that this is a documentary commissioned by and effectively run by Tim Schafer. The view of the man and his company that it has of him, it definitely paints him as a genius, which is also the feeling that a lot of people on the outside have of him. But it also seems to be the feeling he has of himself, even if he doesn't want to say it.
It's I don't know. I think that you're like your general kind of like, oh, I wonder what the documentary does about that. You will definitely find an answer out if you watch more, right?
Okay. I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
I've not finished it. I just watched the hour-long episode 27, Villains of Crunch Mode. That is a hard episode to watch. That is an episode where people like someone breaks down in tears in a massive company meeting at Tim, not like while Tim is in the room, but like near screaming match with him.
That I'm really interested to see that, because there's an earlier episode where they talk about like memories of the company, and actually some of the best footage they have in the first episode is of them making Psychonauts 1, because they're not making that footage for the documentary, they're just filming themselves. And someone talks about how some of their best memories are during crunch, and they talk about sitting and eating pizza and watching movies and things with the group, and then says they're some of the hardest possible days. Like it was horrible to work through that. And there was this sort of glancing thing of like, they're some of the best memories because we all went through a horrible experience together, but it doesn't make that clear that that's what that was. And again, I don't necessarily think they need to. I think that sometimes these documentaries, especially when they're commissioned by the person it's about, they do need to leave you to your own conclusion, in a way that maybe I wish the movie later on we talked about did a bit more. But I think that I none of this is saying that you shouldn't watch it, because I think, you know, from the bits that I've seen, it's really good, and from the sounds of it, from what you're saying, it gets even better. They get even more candid and in the weeds with it, which is quite good.
I think a large part of it as well is, yeah, like in the early days, there is a lot of, what if they're just being this way because the cameras are on? But I think as time goes on, the cameras are start to become normalized in everyone's office behavior. So I think there is a certain amount of like, oh, by episode 10, that person is just speaking their mind because like they're not censoring themselves anymore. So people who come into the company brand new are very much censoring themselves because they are genuinely a bit uncomfortable about the whole process. Like, oh, you're filming everything? That's weird. I better make sure to not call Tim a cunt. And
Yeah.
then like
Throws
cut
Tetris
to
every time they come over.
yeah, but then cut to someone who's been in this since the very beginning, and they're just throwing Tim. That like that. This is not a real example, but like you can tell with their candidness that they would throw Tim under the bus at this stage
Yeah.
because they know that this is just like this is what it's for. This is the outlet. This is where you get to have very private moments of speaking your mind and knowing that you get to put it on the record. Like if you've got a strong opinion, you come and fucking say it on the documentary right now because later it's gonna prove you right or wrong, but for record's sake, here it is. Here's the take. And I think that's super cool as well as watching people like double down on something early and watching what that becomes later on in the cycle is super cool.
Okay, well that's really interesting. Yeah, I find talking about documentaries and what their purpose is and how they're made very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that people have a view of documentary that it is a like perfect, crystal clear, factual report of an event, and that's not really what documentary is. And not to say that everything has an agenda, capital A agenda kind of thing, but there is a director in there, and there's a reason that these things are made, and it's interesting to examine that. And but this seems like a really fun show, and a really interesting one.
And I just want to point out as well that every episode has like a small custom sketch animated intro that all the sketches they do for the intro of the episode are sketches of things that are going to be in the episode later. But it's just really nice. Like it's
Yeah,
never
it's really
just the
well put
same.
together.
Yeah, it's really well produced. It's really incredible. And as I say, whether you do or don't really buy into like the factual element and kind of like the candidness of the people there, the fact is this is still ultimately like I I don't know, 32 episodes, maybe 16 hours. This is still possibly 16 plus hours of documented video game development footage that just doesn't exist. Of like if this doesn't exist, that is just a void in the video game development like documentary sphere. And so ultimately just watch this with your own like set of goggles, like whatever filter you need. Just watch this just because nowhere else is giving you this much insight, whether you believe it or not.
All right, you are making a game, and the game is about finding a one sentence review by going into people's heads, into their minds, and finding the one sentence review that's at the core of their soul. And it takes you years. It's a bloody nightmare. You have all sorts of budget problems. You're trying to keep to the sort of vibe of a previous game that involved finding a one sentence review in someone's mind, but a lot of those people have moved on from the company, and you're trying to keep that together, and you've to top it all off, you've got to do all of this while there's cameras on you constantly, and you know that whatever you do will be indelibly embedded into the history of video game creation. And so you go home and you pour yourself a glass of whiskey and you take a sip and you sit there and you think about what got you into this in the first place. What even made you want to make a game in the first place? And it was that one original one sentence review of Double Fine's PsychOdyssey, and you think back to what it was.
Sorry, I'm in the moment. I'm like role playing now.
Okay.
I might just get a glass of whiskey. Do you mind?
I do mind, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it's hard. Okay. This will be flawed then, but only because you didn't let me have the whiskey.
That's fine. I'm okay with that.
My one line review for this is just insightful, important, and entertaining. That's what matters.
Cool. All right, that was Double Fine's PsychOdyssey, a YouTube documentary series. Go check it out. It's all up there for free. Next up this month is my show of the month. And this month, I'm talking about a little show that's pretty hard to get outside of Australia, but you can get hold of it. It is Aunty Donna's Coffee Cafe. This is the brand new 6-part sitcom by the Aunty Donna boys. It features the boys now running a trendy cafe in Melbourne, I think, where they have to deal with an aggressive landlord, wacky customers, and all sorts of absurd shit. A few years ago, on this very podcast, we reviewed Aunty Donna's Netflix show, Big Old House of Fun. And I think I speak for both of us with saying that we were pretty positive about it. We gave it a fairly glowing review. So I was fairly hyped with this show coming out. I really wanted to watch it. And in the end, I think what we've ended up with is something that doesn't necessarily live up to those highs. And that's not to say the show isn't good. Certain set pieces are exactly what you want from the Donna boys. Broden going on a stag night where every event has a safety briefing at the beginning, including eating at a fast food restaurant, or the World Series of people who don't know how to play noughts and crosses, which ends in a draw after multiple hours. These are good examples of their absurdist humour working at its best, but there's a reason that those bits have been cut up into YouTube sketches. In truth, the best bits of the show are like the standalone sketch gags, the things that they are known for anyway, the things that were the core of the Netflix show and their YouTube channel. And the sort of constraint of the coffee cafe part of it feels a bit like it drags a touch. This is a show that's also fully, intensely aimed at an Aussie audience, which is no surprise as it hasn't got a wide release. But there's, for example, whole episodes that were centered around historical Aussie figures or cultural references without making any effort to bring you up to speed. That isn't a bad thing, but it is, because it is, after all, made for Aussie TV, but it's probably a good example of why this didn't end up as a Netflix series. All in all, there's not a huge amount to say about this show, but I think it's interesting to talk about how it relates to the other stuff that they've put out, and in particular the Netflix show. This show feels like House of Fun's lesser brother. It's funny, it's very funny in certain parts of it, but it doesn't feel like an evolution of what Donna can do. I enjoyed the series, but I think in the end I'll be more excited for House of Fun season 2 than I will Coffee Cafe season 2. Jonas, have you watched it at all?
I watched like the first 5 minutes of episode 1, the the opening song that they do where they're inducting a new staff member.
Yeah.
And I watched that because I just basically needed to prove, like, can I get my VPN to trick this service into thinking I'm in Australia so I can watch it? And
Yeah.
I was like, yes, I can. Great. I've watched the first 5 minutes. I know I can come back and watch this anytime. I'll totally do that. And then I just didn't.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is, like that opening was like, yeah, this feels like it could have just been like one of their YouTube sketches, the same way that Bigoted Bill was like the opening to their 1999 series. And like their YouTube sketches, they do like doing a setting. They really like doing a sketch release where they're going to do 12 sketches, but for some reason they're all in a school. And then they'll do 12 more sketches, but this time they're all like hosting a dinner party. Like they do like doing that. And I think that's obviously because it's also a convenience of like set hire and like, recording costs to like do it all in one day sort of thing. But yeah, so when this came out, I was a bit like, oh, cool. Another House of Fun. That's great. And then I think I've heard from not just yourself, but like genuinely 2 or 3 other people that it's like, yeah, it's Aunty Donna, all right. But you can see why this show wouldn't be like, isn't Netflix material in just a lot of different ways, and mainly the ways that you said. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of like holding it in my back pocket to maybe just sit and like blur my eyes out when I need like a bit of a pick me up or something. But just appreciating that it's like, it's not gonna be what I did with the Aunty Donna's House of Fun, was I found myself just rewatching episodes just so I could get to like a fun bit again. And I don't think I would go through that same effort with this show quite as much or quite as enthusiastically.
I agree. I think that exactly like you said, like you can put on any episode of the Netflix one and you get that quality throughout the whole thing. You know, occasionally one of them is a little bit worse than the others, but generally you get that level of quality throughout the whole thing. And I think with Coffee Cafe, it's not that the narrative bits are bad, because they aren't. It's just that they don't they feel like they're trying to constrain themselves, right? They feel like they're sort of, I really like their podcast, and their podcast is just sort of like, insane improv ramblings most of the time. But occasionally in the podcast they try and sort of set a theme for that podcast, and they'll use that to get them from segment to segment, or like joke to joke, whatever. But in the podcast, it's improvised. That's part of the fun. It's shaky and weird and fun. In the TV show, the bits where they're trying to get from segment to segment in the Coffee Cafe feel like that podcast, but it doesn't have that weird improv energy. It just sort of feels like they know they have to get to somewhere, and they might sprinkle a couple of jokes in. I think, yeah, like I said, the real best bits are the bits you can watch on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can watch the stag do sketch on YouTube. You can watch the Noughts and Crosses on YouTube.
Because I've noticed that their YouTube channel has been pumping out stuff like every week or every like 3 days. And I'm sat here like, and I squint and I'm like, wait a second, is that just from the show that I'm waiting to go watch? Oh, well, I probably won't watch the YouTube sketch then, because I'll wait to go watch that show instead. But now it sounds like if I'm not in a rush to watch the show, maybe I should just watch the YouTube sketches and
I mean,
not worry
definitely.
about it.
Also, in between the clips from the show that they've been releasing, they've also been releasing these weird YouTube videos where they're promoting the show by doing strange
Yes.
things. And some of those are better than a lot of what happens in their actual TV show, right? The gag where
Yeah.
for the Netflix show, they got tattoos on their arse of the Netflix logo. And then for this one, they got tattoos of the ABC logo on their arse, the ABC iView logo on their arse again. And they actually genuinely got the tattoos. That had that anarchic, like, improv energy that Aunty Donna do really well in a way that the TV show just didn't. And I think they either need to do like hyper polished, hyper absurdist sketches like Noughts and Crosses, like the Netflix show, or they need to have that anarchic improv energy, but just sort of straight, sort of funny wordplay sitcom isn't for them, I don't think.
Yeah, I can see that. And like what's a shame is they are, as performers, they are very reliable, I think. Like they
Mm.
are really good at always bringing that comedy and character to the screen. So I guess it's just about how that content is written and then ultimately presented, I guess, is part of the problem. Like I'm just thinking of stuff that I've seen them in that isn't that like their own show, and they've done Wizard of Oz, as in AUS, Australia.
Oz.
Um
Oz.
Oz, yeah, Wizard of
Australia.
Oz. And like they are guest characters in that throughout the show, and just immensely funny. And that is very much a sketch show, but it's not their comedy that's writing like the narrative element of it. They are just enforcing and providing those silly characters. And I could have sworn they did some weird cult show that was like Praise the Sun, that you might remember the name of better than me.
Yes. Yeah. Praise the Sun. Yeah, it was.
Um,
Yeah, I think they might. Yeah, I can't remember, but yes.
Anyways, so those were just like, yeah, they've definitely shown up in media in the past and like really doubled down on just having fun and being like a positive influence on that sketch writing that someone else has written, and they've been asked to just perform those bits at their best.
Yeah, I don't think they're the problem. I just think that this show isn't it,
Good
and
sentence.
but I don't think this show is it. I think that it's it's not bad. It has some fun bits. I wouldn't mind watching it again if someone put it on, but I wouldn't go back to it like I did with the Netflix show.
Yeah, I feel I may be the same, but I need to get on and watch it to actually know for sure how I'm gonna feel about that. Have you got much else to say, or do we want to move on?
Let's move on.
All right, so James, it feels like only yesterday that you released your incredibly successful short 6-episode Netflix comedy series. To a lot of positive review and acclaim. Now, since then, you have, of course, been trying to find that magic. You've been trying to get back on that old horse and just make a whole new concept that's gonna take the world by storm. And you decide, you know what? The next product is going to be closer to home. That means no Netflix. Netflix is where international appreciable comedy goes. This is comedy just for people in your area of insert town here. Trying not to dox you hard.
Well, you could say London.
Oh my god, Jamie, you're telling me you live in London? Okay. London.
Oh my god, they're gonna
and-
find me from that.
Yeah, no, they are. And then so you decide to make something a little bit closer to home, but you realize it's not. It's not actually like. It's not London. That's your audience. It's people who can appreciate the one-line review of Aunty Donna's Coffee Cafe. That is your niche. That is your audience. And so you set about writing your next comedy special. Now, of course, everyone's asking you, Jamie, what are you working on? What are you working on? What are you working on? You're struggling to come up with a title for this show. And then you just hear the best advice you've ever heard in the world. Someone just says, just be honest. And that's when you decide you're going to name this show after your one-line review of Aunty Donna's Coffee Cafe. That's the only authentic thing you can do. And in that moment, you reply back to them with the title of the show you're going to make.
Not as good as House of Fun. Which is an interesting name for a show, I think.
Would be a really funny name for Aunty Donna's next show.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, guys, we've gone and made a new comedy show. It's called Aunty Donna, not as good as House of Fun. Because it's not as good as House of Fun.
You sounded a bit more New Zealand there.
Well, I was trying to do a bit of a Broden.
Yeah, but you failed.
I don't know. I can't hear the difference. I've not taught myself the difference between like Aussie and Newsy.
Aussie is Aunty Donna. New Zealand is anything Taika Waititi did.
Flight Concords are New Zealand as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've just got the problem of are those just distinct? Like I'll hear those voices in my head, and I'm just like, yeah, but
Those
are
voices you're always hearing in your head.
always in my head? Taika Waititi, get out! But I just have that problem of just like, is that? Am I just hearing like another person's voice, or am I actually able to distinctly piece out two accents?
I have no idea. And next up is the other section of the of the TV section. And the reason I'm moving on quickly is because Jonas, you've written something called Jonas's Anime Hour, and we're already an hour and a quarter into the podcast, so we need to get through this. Jonas, what is Jonas's Anime Hour?
Just to check, you're sure you don't want to spend 15 minutes talking about New Zealand and Australian accents?
I'm not sure I do, but we can save that for the break, maybe, or maybe after the podcast. We can come back as like a special feature.
Jonas's Anime Hour. I don't know if you realize this or know this about anime, Jamie, but they tend to release quarterly. So, in at the beginning of spring for like Japan's anime cycle, all the episode 1s of like 15 different shows come out in the same week. And then for the next 12 weeks, you will have all of them release episode 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the same 7-day calendar, right?
Right.
So what you'll realize is every 3 months, I have an anime hour because a bunch of new anime just dropped and I've watched like episode 1 of at least 5 different animes.
Right.
So just real quickly, Mary and I are carrying on watching Demon Slayer because there's more Demon Slayer. I've talked about this probably in the past. People get swords and fight demons. You don't need to know much more than that. There is a really great comedy anime out at the moment. It's really simple. The concept's really accessible, and it's basically, man, what if we made an anime that ripped off and parodied Harry Potter, but rather than a chosen one wizard, the chosen one was a muscle gym bro that can't use magic, but still has to succeed at all the different magical classes. So he just does it by being a complete muscle himbo. It's a very, very funny show, and I highly recommend it, especially if you're into like kind of One Punchy Man stuff. And Mary and I've watched an anime called Mount Dead. You know what? I don't even remember the title of this show well enough to talk about it, so I won't talk about it. We've been watching lots of new anime, and talk to me about anime, please. But I won't take up any more of Jamie's time with anime.
And I also watched Frankie Boyle's Farewell to the Monarchy, which I have to say was a bit mediocre. It was Channel 4 have been doing various sort of counterculture monarchy things leading up to the coronation next week. And Frankie Boyle did a little documentary on the history of the monarchy, which was basically him talking about various monarchs from history. That was kind of interesting. And then having brief segments where he makes Frankie Boyle-esque jokes. That was pretty funny, but together it just felt sort of like they needed to fill an hour in their time slot, and that was basically it. So yeah, that's Frankie Boyle's Farewell to the Monarchy. I just thought I'd mention it to say don't bother if you
Farewell to the Monarchy, more like Frankie Boyle's Farewell
to the Monarchy.
Fuck off.
It's interesting because it's one of those shows where I saw it, and we've been watching Taskmaster, and Frankie Boyle's in the current season of Taskmaster, and I was like, oh yeah, I actually really like Frankie Boyle. I know he's fairly edgy, but he's about as edgy as I get as with my interest in comedians. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be interesting, like a sort of takedown of the monarchy kind of thing. And it was the first time in a long time I've watched a TV show. You know those kind of TV shows that are just designed to fill time in TV calendars. There's shows that only exist on TV really because it's like something for people to watch on a Saturday afternoon kind of thing. And it was
I like the idea that there is stuff that's on TV that isn't for people to watch.
No, but like, Severance is stuff that you go to watch, right? You want to watch that show, or like, even Aunty Donna's Coffee Cafe or that kind of stuff. But then there's also shows like these sort of fluff documentary kind of things, or like, house fixing up shows that are just there to sort of fill time on TV.
Yeah, stuff because the channel can't air nothing and they don't want you to change the channel too quickly.
Exactly. And they advertised it like it was going to be this interesting thing, and actually it was like, oh yeah, this is what TV's like. It's been a long time since I've just watched basically terrestrial TV. I forgot this is what it was like. All right, we're gonna take a brief break, grab yourself a glass of water or something, and when we come back we'll be talking games. Jonas will be talking Dredge, and I'll be talking Shadows of Doubt. We'll be talking movies. Jonas is talking about Suzume, and I'm talking about Page 8. And then we'll be talking about our random Netflix movie this month, which was a movie called Magic Medicine. So tune in for that.
All right.
Cool. All right, we are running really long, so I think Shadows of Doubt is going to be a long one. So let's take a very brief break, and then we'll come back.
Alrighty. Yeah. If you want, we can cut down discussion on the next thing as well.
Yeah, I don't think my movie's going to take too much.
I mean, you won't have much to say about my movie either, but I just want to talk about it. So
okay, cool. But I think Shadows of Doubt is going to be a long one.
All right, cool. See you in a minute.
Yeah, we'll see you in a minute. Bye. I will not let you through. Detain. We fucking got it. Gulag. You done fucked up, my friend. Gonna get gulag and death thanks to me. No, just get permit. It's fine. Detain. Off to gulag. Now that man is going to gulag. Aha. Wrong. What do you have to say for yourself, you son of a bitch? Detain. To the gulag with you. Got any bombs? Well, that looks like a weapon to me. You have made a mistake coming in here. Is it so obvious? Yes. To the gulag, my friend. They don't look the same. Detain! Female? Female? Interrogate! Are you a woman? Please let me through. In the gulag! I have family to not feed. To the gulags with you! You're wasting my time. Aha. Wrong. Wrong. Detain! Passport is your ticket the fuck out of here. No. I'm not leaving. Detain! Oh! No, you fucking ain't. Detain! To the gulag! If nudes are bad, you will go to gulag. Detain? Detain. Well, that's different. I do not understand. Detain! Oh no, I thought that was wrong. I have no idea what you're talking about. Detain! Detain! To the gulag with you! Aha! You done fucked up. Detain! To the gulag with you! What's going on here? Detain! The gulags are going to be full today. Just in time for Christmas. Gotcha, you fucker. Detain! One last gulag to round off the day. Female. Detain? Detain! Gulag with you, my friend. Detain! I love the smell of gulag in the morning. Our first detention of the day. You're in. Oh, wait. Are you an international criminal? Wait. Oh, I almost missed my opportunity to detain. To the gulag! Oh, wait. Yes, criminal. I have nothing to say, but gulag! Calliston Catherall. Fine. Sure. I don't even know what I detained him for, but I was given the opportunity, so I detained him. She's covered in guns! I think I've made a mistake. To the gulag! I do not understand. Detain! That's not fine. Detain! I think that's high hand. No, it's not. I don't know anything about that. Detain! I'm detaining you. That is what I'm doing. Wrong. Lies. You're doing crimes. I understand. Detain! Gulag! Aha. Last gulag of the day. Discrepancy detected. Okay. Oh, detain! Don't worry about it. Who needs reason for denial stamp when you can detain? No known alias. Detain. We're gonna get a lot of gulag bonuses today, aren't we? Oh, you got it. You got it. You don't understand. Detain. Oh, so many good gulags today. I'm sorry. Detain. I have authority. Off to gulag, my friend. Hurry up. More people to send to gulag. Yeah, that's not right. Can I detain? Detain! Up you go. See you later. Thanks for the watch. Detain! Oh! Bloody hell. Is that you? Caught another criminal, friends! Are these the same? No. Oh? Detain! Off to the gulag. Oh, I can feel the bonuses from the gulags coming my way. Maybe things get too sexy in here. Ah, come on, sir. Nope. Oh my god. Fucking hell. Excuse me, sir. What about the bottom on your back? Yeah, that's not you. One last gulag to round out the day. Tell me, why have you a false passport? Detain! Off to gulag! It is being confiscated. Detain! You could have just left me with passport. Aha! You thought you could get this one by me? What kind of idiot do you think I am? Gulag! Hey! You see one guard knock a woman out with rifle, you've seen them all. Excuse me, sir, this is forgery. Gulag! Next, please! Hope you don't go to Gulag! Oh, who am I kidding? I do. Excuse me, sir. Are you a criminal? Up you go! Sorry, Georgie boy. Gulag once more. That doesn't look male to me. Detain! This doesn't let you in. No, you don't. Detain! Detain! I know what to say. Gulag! Detain! Gulag! These aren't tasteful in the slightest. You shall be detained. Okay, we don't need to detain. Gulag! Okay. Gulag! Hey, you go to Gulag. What you go to Gulag? Who am I to say? It's not my place. Oh, it's way sourer than I remember. Oh my god.
You're
I'm the Great Destroyer.
Boris Johnson.
Borage Dungeon. Borage Dungeon build robot. I think Maddie's having a breakdown and she's supposed to be in charge of that.
I don't want excuses.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Sorry, we were just having a completely unrelated discussion in the break and then realised we weren't live and we should go live.
Yeah, we've actually done 5 reviews during that break, and no one's gonna hear them.
Yeah, but none of them the ones that we actually advertise as being on. That's just the thing that we do, is we're constantly reviewing.
It's such a natural thing for us to do. Is just to review media as part of our Yeah,
if we're surrounded by media and screens, we just have to review. All right, should we return to normality?
What is normality? But yes.
Welcome back. It's the game section, and first up this month is Jonas. Jonas, what are you reviewing for us? What have you brought us?
I brought you Dredge. Dredge is a video game developed by Black Salt Games and published by Team 17. It's an indie fishing game with an eldritch twist. You begin the game as a humble fisherman stranded on a small island town. The mayor of that town loans you a boat and says you can pay off your debt by catching and selling fish to the town. And as you play the game, you uncover a plot which has you explore several different and distinct regions of the map, fishing as you go. As you start to get comfortable with the fishing, you'll sort of enter a bit of a flow state. You'll head out, fish as much fish as you can fit on your boat, sell the fish back to town for money, and repeat this until night falls, or you sort of start to seek out a specific objective. And it's when night falls that the game sort of starts to hit its element and change the most. For you see, attempting to navigate the seas at night will generate in your character something called panic. Panic in Dredge is a lot like stress in Darkest Dungeon, which I think is a good point we might return to later. Now, panic alone, as you go through the night, your character will get panicked. Now, and there's nothing inherently wrong with this. It's fine to be panicked. But as you become more panicked, the sea becomes more dangerous at night. Dangerous creatures may start to emerge and start hunting down your boat. You'll start to hallucinate land masses that didn't exist there before in the darkness, presenting more physical obstacles between you and safety. Like your own cargo will start to twist and deform as your very fish start to rot and change in nature before your very eyes. And so really the best thing to do is not go sailing at night, so you'll be able to rest at towns nearby. But the only problem is if you play it safe, then you'll never be able to go out and catch some of the rarest and most valuable fish that can only be found at night. Not to mention, there are parts of the world where perhaps being panicked has its advantages. The core loop of fishing, it's very enjoyable. Most objects are obtained by sailing over to their fishing spots and playing a little mini game. As you make money, you can upgrade your boat to be stronger, bigger, faster, emit more light, throw out nets to catch fish passively as you row around. And as you become more confident exploring the world, you'll discover side quests and a main story to follow. And as that all develops, you'll get tools and abilities that let you master the waters in ways you couldn't before. But underpinning all of that is the simplicity of that enjoyable fishing game. There is a real joy to be had to just setting off sail into the waters and catching a few fish, regardless of what your larger objective is, story, side quest, or otherwise. I think this is a game that has an incredibly beautiful presentation. The visual style is just gorgeous, with information being communicated cleanly to the player through really efficient UI and thoughtful placement of light and land. The audio and soundtrack always accompany you out on the water, but they never intrude. But I think the real star of this game is a little thing called the unknown. Your own lack of comfort when exploring new areas, your distrust of anything you see or hear at night, the sense that the only way to know if something is true or not is to try it yourself. That constant fear of the unknown is what Dredge offers when it's at its best. And it's quite a short indie game that I think you can probably complete in anywhere between like 6 to 8 hours. This is a very comfortable and experience that I really highly recommend. Now, Jamie, I know you've streamed a bit of this. I made an effort to try and check it out because I wanted to see you go sailing into the dark depths of the ocean. What was your experience? How did you find it?
Yeah, it's interesting because I was going to say I've only played 2 hours of it, so I don't feel like I've got much of a grasp of it. I felt like we really scratched the surface and didn't get very far into it. But you're saying it's a potentially 6 to 8 hour experience, so maybe I'm a third to a quarter of my way through already.
Maybe okay, you know what? Fuck me. I played way more of it than I thought I did.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I played 26 hours.
Okay, all right. Well,
I
okay,
thought it was a short game. I think I just liked it that much that I
right.
didn't realize I'd played loads of it.
I mean, that's probably a good thing. I'm just looking on the Steam page for it. I've played 2 hours, but it looks like they've got like a whole roadmap for stuff to expect.
Yeah, they've got a roadmap.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
looking
first
forward
one
to
is
that.
called Map Markers. So there we go. Yeah, no, I found it really interesting, the first part of it. So when I talked about it before, I talked about when I meant you talked about it and I mentioned what it looked like. I said it looked like Sunless Seas meets Sega Bass fishing. And I think that is, but now having played a couple of hours of it, I still think that that's correct.
Mm,
I think that the fishing part of it, which is something that I have talked at length about how much I hate fishing in mini games in games. I think that it is just tuned just right. It doesn't outstay its welcome. Each thing of fish you get is it like minimal effort, but still an enjoyable like little response thing you need to do. Um, and there's more to it than just the actual fishing up of things. You need to sort of Tetris them into your boat. All the fishes are different shapes, and so you have to like fit them into this inventory that makes up your boat. And actually, every time I did it, I found it an enjoyable thing. I found the puzzle of
mm.
fitting them into the boat interesting. I found the actual getting of them interesting. And then on the Sunless Seas side of it, the atmosphere was, I really liked the atmosphere. I liked the quirkiness and weirdness. I liked this fishmonger asking me to get him strange fish and stuff like that. That was really interesting. What I felt was maybe the game felt to me like it thought it was more mysterious than it was. Like it took us the majority of the game for us to feel or not the game, but the majority of our first session to feel a real need to go out at night. Like we spent a lot of time doing most of the stuff in the day, and then even when we were going out at night early on, nothing was happening. Like we weren't experiencing any kind of problems or anything. We were getting a bit panicked, but we were sort of going out at night near us and things like that, and everything was fine. And it wasn't till maybe an hour and 30 into our first session that I went, fuck it. I'm just going to go. I'm just going to
Mm.
go into the night and see what happens. And then we started to encounter stuff. And I sort of felt like having played games that have a similar vibe and a similar feeling, like Sunless Skies or Sunless Seas in particular, they very quickly tell you this is a dangerous place, right? You're going to encounter things that are quite threatening. They won't kill you right off the bat. That's for a bit further out, but they're pretty creepy and weird. And this game didn't do that. How did you feel it was pace wise? Did you feel like you were introduced to the sort of feeling of unease early on, or did you feel like it took a bit of building to get there?
So for me, it was I played it safe for a really long time, right? Like I never took any unnecessary risks. If anything damaged me, I would immediately go back to somewhere I could repair my ship. And if anything spooked me, then I would tiptoe around the border of what I think that thing was and would only start to like dip in and dip out to start testing the boundaries of what was safe and what wasn't.
Hmm.
I came to a disappointing realization. Everything bad in that game is just something that can damage your hull,
Mm,
right? So imagine like a really atmospheric, creepy horror game.
mm,
But then you find out that everything horrific in that game just does 25% of your health bar.
mm,
And that instantly kind of took me out of like the immediate like fear and shock once I realized that that was the game's primary way of punishing me. And I wanted it to do a bit more. Now, what's interesting about that as well is I rewatched the trailer to this game to show it off to someone. There's shit that happens in that trailer that never happened to me. Never in all
mm,
26 hours of gameplay. And this included me going out at night and maximizing panic, like you went out at night, like balls against the wall. I found myself going out at night, turning off my light on purpose and trying to trigger panic as hard as possible
mm,
because I discovered that there are things in the game that basically reward you for being panicked.
mm.
So then I learned how to navigate the world at its worst. It's not that bad. Like I basically realized once I knew how to do it, I was like, oh, I know how to survive the worst that this game can throw at me now. And that
Yeah.
was a bit disappointing.
I very quickly got the sense that if I like having more health just gave me more opportunities to fuck up. That
Yeah.
like nothing would kill me instantly, and that most of the damage I took was because I was a bit reckless turning around a corner, or oh, I didn't see that thing coming, kind of thing. And none of it was like, I hate to sort of just basically bang on about another game incessantly, but Sunless Seas is doing this, but you encounter things in the ocean that you're just like, what the fuck is that? And it will do something like it will make all of your crew go mad, or like you'll get sunk to the bottom of the ocean where you'll meet the Queen of the Deep or something. And you'll be like, and like I very quickly got the feeling in Dredge that, I'm really excited to play more of it, but I did very quickly get the feeling that like this is going to be a game where I navigate obstacles and not where I have to like avoid the unknown.
Mm.
Like, yeah.
I think this is a game that like I think this will end up being a really like this is a great game and it will be made better. Um but yeah, that kind of like I'm trying to think of what the phrase I'm trying to I can't think of the phrasing now, but like there is a certain there is a certain gap between the game at its safest and the game at its most like challenging to the player, and that gap isn't as wide as I thought it would be.
Mm.
The game at its most threatening is not nearly as threatening as I had kind of anticipated. Which, I'm sorry if you're interested in this game and you're hearing me say this, because I do think that this takes away from the magic a bit, but it is an important aspect of my experience with the game. I still love this game. I need to be really clear about that. I still wholeheartedly recommend this game to anyone. And I think there is I'm trying to make sure that I really don't talk about what these threats are, because that should be the unknown that you are cautious about.
Yeah.
Is But you will realize at a certain point, once you become confident and once you understand the rules of the game, you'll just start to fly out there and be like, okay, cool. I know that I'm untouchable under these conditions.
Yeah, and I think it has the problem of drawing on a theme and a vibe that has been done extensively by games that really knocked the idea of an unknown threat out of the park. And if you have experienced those games, this feels less than that. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just feels like it's not a Sunless Seas. It's a different thing. I started playing it with Laura on stream, and I played 2 hours, and then Laura ended up, and then immediately before Laura started doing a 2-week run of teching a show, so we can't play it because she made me promise I'd play it with her. So I have been desperate to play more of this game, and I think that should say how, even despite my misgivings on the difficulty or the sort of night part of it, that first 2 hours really hooked me, and it sounds like the whole thing hooked you.
I went as far as trying to achievement hunt this game. I have found every fish in the encyclopedia and all the abominations. I've done every side quest. I've discovered every location. And now the only thing left is to fully upgrade my ship, which is actually the most miserable part because I need so many research parts to do that.
Mm.
And the game has no convenient way of just throwing them at my lap.
You've just got to
So I
find
have
them. Yeah.
just got to go. Would you know? I have to dredge them up.
Dredge them.
Yeah, I love this, and hit me with the summary so we can move on.
All right, you are a fisherman, and you're out fishing. You're picking up fish, and you're fishing through the day, and then you don't realize you're so interested, excited in fishing, you don't realize it's gotten into the deep dead of night. It's all dark out, and then your line catches something, and you reel it in, but it looks nothing like any fish you've ever seen before. It looks exactly like a one-sentence review for the game Dredge. You read its writhing flesh, and it says,
Um, a brilliant recontextualization of the familiar and yet unknown.
those shivers down your spine come from Jonas's review of the game Dredge, which you can find at all good video game places. All right, we're going to move on to my game of the month, and this month I'm talking about a brand new early access game called Shadows of Doubt. So Shadows of Doubt is an immersive sim in which a sci-fi noir city is procedurally generated for you, and then you go around being a private investigator. So, as I said, this game is still in early access, only getting a public beta last week, I think. So, this is very much a first impressions of this game. I do hope we come back and we do a full review at 1.0, but the core premise of this game is fucking bonkers, and it's worth talking about how well it currently manages to pull that off. So, Shadows of Doubt generates you your own city. The building layouts, the names, the people in it, all of it are randomly generated. It gives all the people jobs, homes, routines, relationships, and then it has them live their lives. They work, they eat, they sleep, they visit bars, they buy weapons, and occasionally they kill each other. And that's where you come in. After an initial sort of preset murder case, where you'll run through the general mechanics of the game, you're unleashed on the city and just told to look for work. The day-to-day of the game is picking up these randomly generated jobs from message boards. You might be asked to find a secret document and fling it into the sea, or take a photo of someone a client is in love with. These missions involve sort of secret meetings and receiving briefcases of info, and a whole lot of breaking into people's apartments. Because they're randomly generated, they have the usual mix of quality you might expect from something like this. Sometimes they're quick and satisfying, sometimes they're long and tedious, and because this is early access, sometimes they're just fully broken. But all of them help pass the time quite well until the real meat of the game occurs. While you're playing, an NPC somewhere is planning a murder. They will go and they will buy a weapon, they will pick out a target, they plan their kill, and then they do them in before returning to their day-to-day life or starting to plan their next hit. When a body is found, you get a big screen-spanning notification, and then the hunt is on. You're given the address of a body and nothing else. See, the way this works is that everyone in this game, whatever they do, leave evidence just in their day-to-day. When they touch things, they leave fingerprints. When they pass by cameras, they're logged in security systems. When they buy an illegal rifle, they're given a handwritten receipt that they might keep in their safe in case they might need to return it.
Yeah.
They might also do irrational things. The murderer might have sent a threat to the victim a few days before, or a serial killer might leave Zodiac-style clues on the body. Because of this system, clues are organically left in the act of doing things, and you're able to really properly investigate murders with logic and deduction. Because this is all random systems firing, it has a chance to be a mess, but when it works, boy does it work. For example, I came across the body of a man who had been shot. I checked his house for clues and found a threatening note saying he'd regret passing them over for a promotion. I also found a fingerprint on it, and I found a box of his personal documents that listed where he worked, and then I went to his workplace, where I found the company HR records. These HR records listed everyone's name, address, and fingerprint data, and I matched the fingerprint with a worker and went to their address, and inside his address, I found on the kitchen counter a skull and a receipt for rifle ammo. I had my man. This was a relatively simple case, and they do get harder the more you solve, but the feeling of getting my man completely unguided by the game in the sort of standard mystery game sense was like nothing else in puzzle gaming. I've seen on Reddit people solve cases by canvassing neighbors or extrapolating hobbies and interests into evidence to pin a crime, or being run around for hours by talented serial killers. At the moment, the game is quite buggy, and some segments of it feel underdone, but the core of it has the opportunity to be this magical thing. This set of mechanics allows you to actually solve mysteries made for you in ways that make you feel like you really did deduce it. Last month, my one-sentence review of Case of the Golden Idol was modern mystery games are going to be great, and boy howdy is this an example of exactly that. Jonas, you've played a bit of it. I think you've probably played a similar amount, maybe even more than me. How do you feel about it?
I don't disagree with anything you've said in your review whatsoever. I've had very positive and very negative experiences with this game. And when I say very negative, I mean teething. Oh my god, what am I saying? Like teething issues where I was told explicitly that someone lived on a certain floor in a certain apartment. And I then spent like the remainder of my day, like the next 6 hours, like I don't even know, like surgically pulling apart everyone's lives on that fourth floor. I broke into every flat. I touched every document. I scanned every fingerprint. I made a Pepe Sylvia style pinboard with all the different strings telling me the 4 different apartments, who lived in each apartment, what physical attributes and knowledge we had on those people, matching their shoes to those people, confirming their ages either through conversation or breaking into their workplaces to get deals or details on them that weren't available in their home, knowing all of their passcodes, knowing everything about all 4 of these people, and none of them matching up with the victim with the information that the game told me about my suspect, right? So the game I feel like the game was trolling me in that moment. You know what I mean? And that felt a bit like painfully visceral. Like, how the fuck have they done this to me?
Yeah.
But there is something about that thrill of like, I walk into a floor on a building. I break into a little security locker and bring down the security doors, ensuring no one can now reach to this floor in the apartment for the next 12 minutes. I break into a flat. I help myself to their key, all their personal information. I touch and I look at everything. And then when I think I'm done, I leave, and that person is waiting to walk inside their flat, but they can't because of the security door I put up. I then go around asking other neighbors about that person. I then am putting their fingerprints like through a database to check that, like, no, were there any other fingerprints in that flat? Is it definitely their fingerprints? Well, I now have to get that individual to give me their fingerprints just in case it wasn't their fingerprints I scanned. Like, and I sit there and I'm like hammering away at every possible lead and possible idea that I can use in this game to find out an answer. And the game has given me like specific mechanics that I can work with, but almost all of them exist within like a logical thinking thread. Like, it's not like the game has given me the psychic ability to read people's thoughts, and so I would only do that in this game because I can't do that in real life. No, almost everything I could think of doing in real life, this game made quite possible. I'd say the most fantastical element of this game is that conveniently every single flat in the building can be accessed through an air vent that seemingly
But
always.
not always. And that's the
Okay.
thing. Like, sometimes you'll be like, I'm going to go in through the air vent. And you get to a place and you're like, this house has no fucking ventilation. I'm wandering around the air vents for fucking hours because it's randomly generated.
It's random. Okay, so then that hits me with the opposite problem of how fucking inconvenient that this game randomly decided to not give this house an air vent when it seems to give everywhere else an air vent. But
I think, yeah,
Carry on.
no, sorry. So I was going to say, I think that this is the thing, is that I had it in my notes before, but and I didn't put it into my main review. But one of the things I was thinking about was that as you play this game, you start to feel like you are a private investigator in this city. And what I mean by that is you learn how this city functions, right? Like you say, everything that you have access to at the beginning is logical tools. You can scan for fingerprints. You can put a pinboard up of clues or things like that, and you can read people's addresses from a book, right? Whenever you need to solve something, whenever you need to solve a mystery, you think, what would I do if I were to solve this mystery? Would I, in real life, what would I do? And they've got enough mechanics in the game for that to work, right? So immediately you're off to the races. You're doing things that you think a private eye would do. And then in the back end, you're learning how this world works. You're learning that most buildings, most houses will have an air vent. So maybe that's a way of me getting it. And the more you do it, the more you learn where those air vents are. You're getting used to the city. You learn very quickly that most companies will keep the fingerprint data of every employee. So if you can get to their employee data, you can start matching up fingerprints. That's interesting. You start to learn things like some basements of buildings operate illegal businesses. And if you know the right business to go, the right door to go to, you can meet, and you'll return to a block of flats multiple times, and you'll start to know who lives in the flats because this is your beat. You are the private investigator that works in this city, not just a private investigator, the one who works here. That I found really interesting.
There are some elements there that I'll quickly revisit. What about like knowing the city? It is quite fun when you break into a workplace, and you'll go through all the employee records, and the next day you'll walk into a cafe and look at someone, and you know their name.
Yeah.
And you look at them and you're like, I know everything about you. Why do I know everything about you? And you'll kind of like in your head filter it through, and you'll be like, I looked at your employee record. Yes. So like,
and the really cool thing about that as well is that if that was in another game and you saw someone you knew, they would be relevant to the case, right? They would never have something like that happen. But in this, they just exist in your city.
Yeah.
So they could be no one at all. You just happen to know who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the fact that I love that the game is logging when one NPC would feasibly know the last seen location of another NPC, because you're going around canvassing, right? And you've got a picture of a victim. Do you know this guy? And the simulation knows that this bartender has met that NPC before and does know where they live because they walk past each other every day on their commute or something like that. You know, that's really good. I do think there is a very silly broken part of the game that I a few broken parts of the game. One is if you're committing a crime in a building, you start to stack up a potential fine to pay. But the only thing you need to do to get rid of that fine is leave the grounds of that building. So I reached a point where I was running into a building, breaking into their back office, and going on their computer, getting spotted by someone, punched him, knocked him out, ran out the building, lost the fine, ran back in the building immediately, not 1 second later, and carried on my criminal activity.
It's interesting about that. That just I'll let you carry on with your list in a sec. But
Yeah,
on that note in particular, I think that I personally think that's a game design choice, because I think that they want you to feel. They don't want you to feel that this is a game where it's difficult to do things, where you're constantly under threat of paying all your money out of it. They want you to feel like you're building something and that you are successful, and that the important part of it is your ability to solve mysteries in this world rather than your ability to go undetected. And I think that's maybe a balanced choice, but I'd be interested to see if they change that later on.
It's just quite a funny, like, ridiculous bit of storytelling for that game is, I punched a man, ran out the building, ran back in, and he'd forgiven me of all my sins. And
Yeah.
also the fact that when I died, I woke up in a hospital and it said, do you want to pay your hospital bills, or do you want to try and break out of hospital without paying your bills? So I said, I don't want to pay. So I woke up I got out the bed. The cameras immediately started blaring because I was getting out my bed without having paid my fees. And so I punched a window and jumped out the window and ran away, bleeding and limping as I went off to solve my next crime. And there's something very silly about, all the systems in that game allow for a very chaotic but personal adventure, like one that was truly yours.
And enough is in place now for it to feel like you can do that. When you do things like you say, solving cases, it makes logical sense, but also just existing in the world. I'm going to punch out this window and run down the street, and that I can do that. I think that it does have that downside that these kind of games has, which is that you like if something is broken, it's randomly generated, so you don't know if it's broken or if it's just difficult. You were saying before about not being able to find the person in those 4 apartments. I had one where I had to find a secret document and then throw it into the sea, and I basically found like 4 or 5 different documents in this office, kept throwing them into the sea, and nothing was triggering it. So I was basically just looting this entire office of documents and throwing everything into the sea. But I think that enough of it works, and especially the murder part of it works well enough that I think it's really worth having a look at right now. And I'm really excited to see more of it. I
think this is a game that definitely it's like get in on day -100 because day 1 will be incredible.
Yeah.
And it'll be good to have gone through that journey. Like I loved that for Hades, and I think I'm going to enjoy the early access process for this game. Okay, Jamie. You are, as we all know, a private detective in a small little neighborhood where every crime is practically outside your doorstep, and you're going to be the one to profit off bringing these people to justice. There is, of course, a murder that happens just nearby. You go check out the place. You start, you pick the lock, you disable the cameras, you case the place for fingerprints, you get all sorts of clues. Now, one of the big clues that you come across is you find out that this person who died, what's this? It seems the reason they were killed was for giving a one-line summary of Shadows of Doubt. What is that one-line summary? You're going to have to find out. The only way you're going to possibly find out, you're going to have to go back through all their records. Where have they been? Where do they work? Who do they know? What's their life? Who is this person? Most importantly, who did the crime? It takes days. You case down joints. You climb through air vents. You disable security systems. You punch a man in the face, and he forgives you after you leave his house. And eventually, after days of searching, you find it. You find the perpetrator. And before you bring them to justice, you say to them, what was that man's one-line review of Shadows of Doubt that would lead you to do a murder so heinous? They look at you. Jamie, what do they say?
A really beautiful, crazy experiment worth keeping an eye on.
And then you teleport through the floor because the game's full of small glitches like that still.
Oh yeah. There is a glitch where if you wait on a bench, you teleport back through the wall behind you.
They fixed that. You know what they didn't fucking fix?
What?
Was me looking through a drawer in someone's bedroom, and then I'm in a dark room, the lights are all off, and I hear someone snoring. I have been teleported to the floor below me, and I am now
Yeah, I
in.
fell through the floor as well, and I ended up in someone's bedroom. Yeah.
It was so scary because I was like on top of their bed, and I was like, "Oh no, they're gonna wake up and find me."
Yeah, I think I fell through the floor into someone's apartment, and they were like, "What the fuck are you doing in here?" and attacked me, and so I just had to beat the shit out of them and then leave their house.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, yeah, the glitches are genuinely fun. Like
yeah.
they're silly and fun. If a bit frustrating.
Well, I'm sure they'll fix them up. That was Shadows of Doubt in early access. Jonas, you put down Honkai Star Rail. Honkai?
Have you heard of
Am I saying that right?
Honkai? Yeah,
Honkai.
Honkai. Have you heard of Genshin Impact?
I have heard the name. I don't really know what it is.
Cool. So there's this company called Hoyoverse that basically make free-to-play anime waifu collectum games. You
Great.
you play like an RPG, like they have made a fully fleshed out Japanese RPG. But the character you play are like collectibles. Like you can unlock different characters to play. How do you unlock those characters? Well, if you have a ticket, you can basically roll a loot box, and that loot box might have a character. That's what the gacha system is. And how many of these tickets do you have? Oh, you have 5 of them, but you could buy 20 for £2. And what about if you want to play the big 5-star super S rank cool new shiny character? I don't know, just pay a certain amount of money and there's a higher percentage chance that you'll get your cool new shiny anime waifu character. And that's what these games are. They are
Yeah.
like cool character collectibles, but the cool characters also are most of the time incredibly like incredibly like attractively drawn women and well men
Incredibly
and women.
waifu.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're just like anime sexy people collectimons, but full of combat mechanics and stuff.
Yeah.
I never played Genshin Impact, but I've been getting really curious about it because it's like a free to play Breath of the Wild, Zelda Breath of the Wild, but with anime characters.
Okay.
And then they just brought out a new game last week, Honkai Star Rail, and it's a turn-based JRPG. So you go into a battle, everything's turn-based. If you do damage that the enemy is weak to, you break their stance, and then all the characters have abilities and synergies. They all play differently. You get a party of 4, and it's got a single player storyline that you play through, like a genuine narrative that it goes through. And out of curiosity, I'm giving it a go. I've unlocked some waifus. I like some more than others.
How much money have you invested in waifus?
0 so far.
Oh.
But here's the thing: is the
Every
first
month we'll check in and
yeah,
you give us a tally of how much you've invested in waifus.
this is going to become less the Bunyip review and more like the Jonas waifu shame
Yeah.
shame corner. Yeah, it's fine. It's honestly, it's these games are the reason these games are popular is because what they do well is the gameplay and the animation and like everything about Honkai Star Rail is a good game. It's just that their method of monetizing this game is play for free, treat yourself, but treat yourself with money. And that's not a bad thing. It's not aggressively monetized. I've managed to play so much of this game for free, and I'm going to play as much as I possibly can for free. And if I feel that monetization creeping in, I'm just going to stop playing it
Or invest in waifus.
or pull out all my savings and buy 10,000 waifus.
By 10,000 waifus. I think it's the
10,000
only
waifus.
way. You've also put down Horizon Burning Shores.
Yeah, Horizon Forbidden West had a DLC called Burning Shores.
I can't believe you're playing DLC and I haven't even been able to play the game yet.
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
But at least there's going to be like a definitive edition when it finally comes out on PC and Burning Shores will be in there. How is it?
You'd hope. Yeah, it's good fun. You go to LA, so you get to kind of see like the future remains of the Hollywood sign.
Nice.
I've been to Los Angeles, so it was quite fun being with Mary and being like, fuck, Mary, I know where this is. I visited what might as well be this house. Like
Yeah.
it was a neighborhood, but
You found the charred remains of yourself in the
I found
game.
every dreadlock accounted for. Um, years later. No, it's good. It introduces a few new machines. It's got a cool different storyline that I haven't finished. It's good fun. I thought I'd just bring it up because it's genuinely been a big part of what I've been playing this month.
Yeah, I cannot wait till that comes out on PC. I'm so excited. Especially with all of the crap AAA stuff that's currently coming out right now. I may end up having played Redfall before next month. So let's see how that goes.
Interesting.
I've also put down Aces and Adventures. This is a game that was published by Yogscast Games, and it is a like a sort of poker themed roguelike, I guess is the best way to describe it, or like adventure game. And I bought it in a 2-pack with Beyond the Long Night, which Jonas has just put into the document. But I haven't played Beyond the Long Night. I've played Ace and Adventures, and from the looks of Jonas's smiling face, I imagine I made the wrong choice out of those two games. Aces and Adventures is basically a poker themed roguelike. So you do damage by creating poker hands. You're given random cards like normal playing cards, and you have to make poker hands, and it's fine. It's a novel idea, but it definitely seems to be hitting on like someone going, what if, a like turn-based adventure combat game but with poker? And then they couldn't follow it further from that initial idea. The writing's kind of convoluted. Well, not convoluted, it's just kind of bland. It's just kind of, not great. And the poker hand idea very quickly goes from, that's interesting, to, yeah, fine. It's not thrilling, or, poker in real life. You've heard of poker, right, Jonas?
I'm aware of it, yeah.
Poker. The interesting thing about poker is not necessarily the making of poker hands. It's the winning of money and the sort of bluffing people out.
I'm
And
a really
those are
big
the
fan
things
of
there's none of.
the thing I'm a big fan of poker is the face, the face of poker.
Yes, but there's Natasha Lyonne doesn't turn up in the game at all, so it's not really
Yeah.
worth it. You just put Beyond the
Disappointing.
Long Night, which was the other game in that 2-pack that I haven't played. How's
So you
that?
haven't played it? Okay, yeah. So this was when I went to WASD, which is like a London little game dev con. I got to play Beyond the Long Night before it came out. It was one of my favorite games that I played there, genuinely. It's a little bit of like a bullet hell roguelike, you know what I mean? Like a little
Yeah.
2D roguelike where you're shooting projectiles and dodging projectiles, and you're meeting little NPCs along the way, and your character is he's just a little like bland mannequin man with a hat, and he floats around the entire game with balloons like lifting him up everywhere, and the number of balloons you have is how much health you have, and there's some very good writing. This was also published by Yogscast Games, which is so I brought it up to you as a special interest when I saw you after WASD.
Yes.
And so I am shocked and perturbed that you would play a different Yogscast game. But it is interesting that we played different games of the same bundle. I highly recommend Beyond the Long Night. I've played a little bit of it so far, and I'm looking forward to playing more.
I think the reason I played Aces and Adventures is because it genuinely seemed different, right? It seemed like something that I'd not seen before. And now, having played it, I realized that it's something I haven't seen before because it's not that good an idea. But there we go. All right, we're going to move on to the movie section of this month. Jonas, what's your movie of the month?
My movie of the month, I was surprised you pronounced this correctly earlier with absolutely no hesitation. It's called Suzume.
Oh, it's because I heard you pronounce it at the beginning of the show. Otherwise, I would not have been able to do that.
Yeah, maybe you would have gone like Suzume. Okay, Suzume. Suzume. Suzume, it's a film directed by Makoto Shinkai. Suzume is an animated film about a high school girl called Suzume. Suzume lives a fairly quiet and peaceful life living with her aunt in a small town on the coast of Japan until one day she meets a man named Sota and helps him close like a supernatural door that, if left open, could cause a calamity in the surrounding area. Fast forward a sort of few minutes in the film, some hijinks ensue. Suta's consciousness is trapped inside a chair, and suddenly Suzume must journey through Japan following an unusual cat, closing more doors and trying to return Suta to his human form. Now, anyone who has seen like some of the big budget animated films coming out of Japan the last few years will appreciate that a lot of these films that end up making it into like European and American audiences, especially as a cinema release, always kind of share like a few common themes, such as like boy meets girl, will they, won't they, a supernatural twist, and chances are one of the main characters has a trauma or disability that somehow prevents a hindrance to them that they slowly overcome and come to terms with throughout the film. For example, Your Name, A Silent Voice, or Weathering with You are all examples of this. And two of those films are also directed by Makoto Shinkai. So there you go. But where Suzume really starts to kind of set itself apart is how Suzume moves through the world and the relationship she develops throughout that journey. I think one thing I love about this film is like there's constant little use of like her just pulling out her smartphone and like looking at Google Maps to like figure out the next step of her journey, or just using apps in like a really like normal, modern living, convenient way, a way that other films would have the character over explain what they're doing with their mobile phone because it's afraid of like their audience being like grandma boomer who's still using like a Nokia. I don't know what the old Nokias are, but you know what I mean when I say the old Nokias. It's able to present like little details of like modern living, like very authentically. And it's just as Suzume weaves through the lives of people, she has these just incredibly like authentic moments. The people that she meets just living their lives the best they can, all of whom like end up kind of providing something to her, helping her, either giving her a lift somewhere or giving her a meal, and supporting this girl who they think is going through a rebellious phase and running away from home, and all of them just wanting to do their best to ensure she does whatever it is she wants to do the safest way she can possibly do it. Every single interaction in this film is so filled with like heart and like this kind of like lovely community spirit that feels like so familiar, and it's so grounded. It really helps kind of like ground the story that Suzume finds herself in, because there are supernatural elements to this film, and there's an incredible beauty to the way that the film presents those supernatural elements. Whether it's a grown man stuck living his life as a three-legged chair, or this unfathomable beast that towers over the city of Tokyo, whose existence alone is a threat to the lives of everyone around it. There is a beautiful majesty in how the whole film is animated and presented. It's a film that absolutely leverages the strengths of its own medium. And I mean, Makoto Shinkai, directing this, but also directing several of those films that I've mentioned earlier. These are the Japanese movies that are making it past like Japan borders and getting into the cinemas of UK and American audiences. They're getting translated or subtitled and dubbed in all these different languages that make them accessible to foreign audiences. And I think all of that is an absolute testament to how much Makoto Shinkai has mastered how best to visually and narratively like tell compelling stories using the medium of anime in a way that is accessible to all audiences. I highly recommend Suzume to anyone that's just like, if you just want like a heartwarming, beautiful like story that just makes you feel good and just gives you a lot of good visuals throughout, Suzume is a really perfect film. Like, especially if you're not used to anime, I think there's a lot here for non-anime fans and anime fans alike. Jamie, this has been in cinemas for a little while now. Like it's been in my Curzon for like 2 weeks or something, and Mary and I, we're glad to have finally got around to watching it. Are you aware of this? Have you seen it advertised anywhere? Do you know the premise?
No, I'd not heard of it. But it sounds cool. It sounds, from my uncultured eye of a non-anime fan, it sounds like you could be describing like a Studio Ghibli kind of film, like sort of. There's a heart to it. How does it, in terms of like visuals, how does it sort of? Does it feel more like TV anime, or is it like that sort of really like beautifully sort of fully done Ghibli kind of stuff?
I think so. Makoto Shinkai definitely has like a visual style to how his anime looks. Ghibli, like Ghibli is generally quite like soft and bubbly, but still presents humans as like normal shaped people, right? Like not
Mm.
muscling, like not like rippling masses of muscle like Dragon Ball Z or something would. Um, but these films tend to look a lot more like high art in their like presentation. Like they really like every shot you will see like the glistening of sun reflecting off a drop of water as it moves down like a blade of grass in the foreground, and you will get slow like establishing shots of just environments like grasslands and cities and cars and just people living their lives. They are dense with information, but none of that information is noisy because it's just the world as you and I know it normally.
Mm.
Like the films are always incredibly grounded in reality, but then the supernatural element is the twist that makes the story interesting, not the world. The world is exactly what you and I know, but this person is going through like a supernatural event or scenario or something.
Yeah, and I've just given it a bit of a Google, and it definitely, yeah, it definitely doesn't have that sort of fluffiness that Ghibli has. It has a sort of like griminess to its sort of environments, which it looks really nice.
It's
It
it's
is
it's
really pretty.
it it is genuinely one of the most like beautiful films you can watch
Mm.
because that's why it's in the cinema, right? Like that's
Yeah.
why it's not just a feature film, but there is so much production value in its animation.
And so you feel like it has the scope to be on the big screen, like that's the place to see it.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Yeah, these films are heartwarming spectacles rather than like when I go to the cinema to watch a film sometimes I'm going to watch like a really high pass fight. Like and there's just going to be big explosions and fast cuts and there's going to be like the swinging of a blade is going to look really cool for half a second and that's what I paid the ticket price for. But in this case, no, no, no. It's like the loving detail. I watched this with a friend called Robert. Robert pointed out to me something that I didn't appreciate. There's a moment where someone gets in the car and they're going to start driving, and they fully animated this person checking their windows, adjusting their seat slightly, shuffling, flicking indicators on, looking to the right, and gently starting to like steer out like a perfectly beautifully animated someone starting their car and pulling out into traffic.
That's really good, and that, as someone who does animation for a job, and also as someone who is on the record as saying that I don't like it when anime um, has sort of economy of animation, but makes it about the animation. And this really, to me, sounds like I love those sort of beautiful bits of detail where like you're animating something normal, but you're recreating it in this style. That sounds great. That sounds right up my alley. Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's so loving. And, Suzume just, her whole journey is like a road trip of Japan, which just means she just keeps getting to, she has like a city segment and a countryside segment and a road stop motel segment and caught in the pouring rain with a stranger. Like all of these things happen to her. So all of these things are beautifully animated and presented to you as part of the film's package. And this is like, just like Studio Ghibli, this is a safe first anime for anyone. Like this is so it's so entry level, but that doesn't make it bad. It's just accessible in that way. But me, a seasoned anime fan, if you will, um, I was bawling my eyes out at segments of this film while still like in complete awe and love of how good the animation was being presented to me in the moment. I loved it.
Cool. All right. Well, you're Jonas. You're a high school girl living in Japan,
Yeah, I am.
and you live a fairly quiet, peaceful life. When
Yeah,
one
I do.
day you meet a man called Robert,
Yeah, I do.
and he needs you to help him to write supernatural one sentence reviews.
Yeah, he
And
does.
if they're left unwritten, it could cause calamity. And so fast forward a few minutes, hijinks ensue, and Robert ends up trapped in a podcasting microphone, and you have to travel through Japan, following an unusual James the Bunyip Man Willis and writing more one sentence reviews. And to return Robert to his human form, you have to write your final one sentence review, finish it, which is the one sentence review of the film Suzume. What is your one sentence review?
Lovingly animated with like little like the little bit of ink that comes out of the pen as it touches the paper, and how it crinkles under the weight of my body. Oh man, it's so lush. This is like mwah, art house deco of calligraphy right here. And then in my shitty handwriting, because I'm Jonas and I have shitty handwriting, I write um I write like a vertical slice of the best that anime can offer.
Lovely. So that's Suzume. It's in cinemas now, probably.
It is, yeah,
Um,
genuinely.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to move on to my movie of the month, and this movie for me is another in the line of. I didn't have time to see something that I was desperately trying to see, so we scrolled through Netflix and found something that looked interesting. And this month I watched Page Eight. Page Eight is a spy drama in which Johnny, played by Bill Nye, is a high-level analyst for MI5. His boss and best friend, Benedict, played by Michael Gambon, presents a document to the Home Secretary proving that the Americans have been up to some shady shit and our Prime Minister knew about it. The Prime Minister is played by Ralph Fiennes, by the way, and does a very good job of it. He ends up sort of on the run, not really on the run, but sort of on the run, trying to work out a way to resolve this. And that's a complicated phrase for a complicated film. Page 8 is a sort of quiet and meandering film. Nye's Johnny is quiet and understated. Conversations are strange, full of questions with no answers or diverting round the point. It gives the film a strange and alluring feeling of quiet spycraft. Not the James Bond guns and explosions type of spy, and in fact, I don't think you see a gun in the whole film, but the kind of spy who gives a lot less info than they take from any interaction, and always has an eye out for a threat or an opportunity. It touches and dances around the themes of life in a career where you can't give anything away. Conversations twist and turn, giving little information, but saying a lot about how little trust anyone has for each other. Moments of vulnerability are exemplified by being the few moments where a character actually says something straightforward and true. For this reason, it feels well researched. It has an attention to detail and an eye for how these people live and work that gives these characters a quiet feeling of class and danger. But while the feel and style of the film is quite enticing, the plot leaves something to be desired. This attention to detail helps when building rounded characters, but it gets in the way of trying to bring you along with the story beats. The actual crux of the matter, which the film hangs around, is unnecessarily complex, with characters who are supposed to be very experienced having to overtly explain why plot points even matter. Moments where something needs to be gotten across for the next story beat to make sense often feel clunkily jammed in, like someone had an array of quite meaty dialogue moments but no connective tissue to hold them together. And it's a shame because the performances are wonderful across the board, especially Nai, whose impassive face still betrays a vague melancholy throughout. In the end, Page 8 is a decent exercise in character and language for the main cast, but little else. An enjoyable film for fans of Bill Nighy, but probably not a memorable one. I'm imagining you haven't heard anything about this film, Jonas.
I've never heard anything about this film. I need to point out something.
Mm.
If you go to IMDb for Page 8, if you're listening to the audio version, please pause the podcast and just or like follow along. You know, this is now an activity, right?
Okay.
Go to the IMDb page of Page 8. You get obviously all the details about this film, and you see all the actors.
Yeah.
And if you scroll down to more like this,
Yeah.
you get a selection of other films that Bill Nighy has like also been in.
Yeah.
The cover art for these films is so weirdly the same. Like, it's not the exact same font, and it's not the exact same compilation of Bill Nighy at the front and woman behind him, but they are all big text of film. No, first is lineup of actors at the top in white.
Jonas,
Yes.
they are a series.
Oh, fuck off.
They are all about Johnny Warwicker, the
Was Page
MI5
8
officer.
Was Page 8 the first, last, middle?
I have no idea. I've only discovered this because of this.
Because of the seemingly similar marketing behind all the films.
Yeah.
So I like that this is like a weird like
So
Bill Nighy
Page
film
8,
trilogy.
yeah, Page 8 was 2011. Turks and Caicos was 2014, and Salting the Battlefield was also 2014. So I don't know which of those came out first.
And they both have Helena Bonham Carter as the female on the box. The lady on the box, if you will.
No. Turks and Caicos has that's not
Oh,
Helena Bonham Carter.
Okay, I'm just looking at the cast list at
That's
the top.
Winona Ryder. So the first film, it's with Anna Win. It's with Rachel Weisz in the first film.
And that's what you watched, Page 8.
That's the one that I watched, and that I think is the first one. And then I have no idea which of the other two. I imagine Turks and Caicos is the second because, not to give too much away, but he gets on a plane at the end of the first film. So Turks and Caicos may have been where he went. And that's got Winona Ryder.
Christopher Walken
And Christopher
is in Turks
Walken.
and Caicos.
And then Salting the Battlefield has Helena Bonham Carter and a bunch of the cast from the original film as well, back in action. Oh, maybe I've got to go through and watch these.
I just found it really terrifying that like Bill Nighy had just been in 3 films that had like nearly the exact same like box art style.
And then there's one called Salting the Battlefield: Moving On.
Oh yeah, there is. It's a different
which
product.
has no description. There's also an IMDb page for
it's 16 minutes long.
Yeah, there's also an IMDb page for Page 8 Electronic Press Kit.
Which is 26 minutes long.
Then there's Skylight, also starring Bill Nighy. But this is a play. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah. The Bill Nighy collection. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is fully derailed this entire review.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen Page 8. I've never heard of Page 8. I've never heard of any of these films. Like, I do like Bill Nighy like quite a bit, but I don't think I'm very interested in like Bill Nighy led like films, if that makes sense. I just quite like it when he shows up in films.
I get that, and I think in this he's good. He's good for the character, and he does a good job of it. But I don't think that he gives a performance that you would go to see this performance.
I'll tell you what. I know I have seen a different film that is a little bit like the concept of Page 8, because apparently Bill Nighy just did the same film for like 10 years. I forgot what it's called, but it's got Rupert Grint in it.
Harry Potter.
Was he in Harry Potter? Not Rupert Grint. I mean,
he was in
Bill
a couple
Nighy.
of them. Yeah.
I mean, was Bill Nighy in? Wild Target, 2010, Wild Target,
Right.
where Emily Blunt and Bill Nye. That's it. Bill Nye needs to kill Emily Blunt, but can't because she's sexy or something.
I like the idea that they're not they haven't got character names. The movie is about Bill Nye trying to kill Emily Blunt.
Yes. I don't need to present it any differently than that. So I think he needs to kill her, but doesn't because like there's something endearing about her and he finds her captivating. But then somehow Rupert Grint is there as well, and that's all I remember about this film.
So Laura pointed out in chat that the other thing that that really shouldn't be in there is that this film, the core storyline is sort of this convoluted thing about black sites and like, you know, US and Britain relations, and they had to keep sort of like having characters explain why things matter to clarify that. And it really felt like it was trying to be a sort of, you know, proper intricate spy thing, right? Where it wasn't about being like all guns blazing, but it was about the nuances of diplomacy and all that kind of stuff. But there was this unnecessary chunk in the middle of Bill Nye basically falling in with this much younger woman that just really felt like it had just been put in there because Hollywood movies of the time needed Bill Nye to kiss a much younger woman. Like it really had dad looking after a daughter energy, and then they kiss, and it was one of the most uncomfortable things I've seen in a long time.
That's basically what Wild Target 2010 was.
Why?
Bill Nye is an old man assassin who has to kill a young woman. He finds himself infatuated with her and charming, so ends up becoming her carer, like her protector.
Kara?
Like yeah, no, but like her like
he injures her in the
daddy-
murder attempt and has to wheel around in a wheelchair.
just her like witty weird assassin protector daddy. But then also
Weird assassin protector daddy.
weird assassin protector daddy. And then there's this like will they won't they between Bill Nye and Emily Blunt. But also Rupert Grint is there.
Just watching.
Just
in the bushes.
just being cocked, I think, for the whole film. I think that's it. So
yeah, I think that I really like Bill Nye as an actor. The Boat That Rocked is one of my favorite films. I really love that film. I love him. I think he's a really funny character, like not character actor. He plays Bill Nye. He's really funny at playing the character of Bill Nye. I don't think he's a love interest unless it's like a older couple still at it kind of thing. I
like
don't
a Love
think
Actually.
like a Love Actually, right? Or like just, you know, a movie where him and another woman of a similar age are like fans of jazz, and the two of them, like, that would be great. I'd be happy with that. Seeing Bill Nye play straight down the line characters who are quite heavily interested in women who look half his age, I don't think that's what people want from. I don't think that's what people want from Bill Nye. I don't think that's it.
Well, clearly you're the wrong audience.
Maybe.
You're not the young woman who lusts after Bill Nye, and these films.
Oh, you think it's aimed at young women who want to sleep with Bill Nye and not men who think they are Bill Nye.
And the film helps you because it's like, I'm a young woman. I wish Bill Nye would love me. Oh my God, Bill Nye loved a young lady in that film. There's a chance for me. There's a chance.
I thought you were going to suggest that the young woman sees it and goes, "Oh God, that's awful. I'm cured."
it's a PSA, like oh no, that's an unhealthy relationship. I should not do that.
Oh God, no. All right, well that's page 8.
More mileage out of that than I thought we would.
Yeah.
Off the back of Bill Nye more than anything else.
Do you want to do a sum up?
Yeah, Jamie, you're a spy. You're an old man spy. You're well past your prime. People love you anyway, and for some reason you keep getting paired up with women in like their 20s to go on raunchy adventures with. And this adventure that I'm about to totally describe well is no different. The the partner the partner in this film is movie reviews, baby, sweet, sexy movie reviews, and the antagonist, single sentences. You're going to have to use your old man stoicism and ability to get information out of people without saying much, because I think you said that, to to put the two together. And then you realize the answer to the entire problem is a one-line summary of the film, page 8. And after that perfectly delivered summary, Jamie, what is your one-line review of the film, page 8?
Oh wow, there's 3 of these.
Yeah.
We will move on, but I just read the first line of the summary of the third film in the franchise, Salting the Battlefield. The summary is: MI5 officer Johnny Warwicker and Margot Tyrrell are on the run together across Europe, but Warwicker knows his only chance of resolving his problems is to return home and confront his nemesis, the Prime
Prime Minister. Oh, that's good. I feel like that's all of the UK right now.
The Prime. Yeah. All right. Well, that was page 8. Jonas, you put Little Miss Sunshine in the other section of the movies.
I've never watched Little Miss Sunshine before. Mary loves Little Miss Sunshine, and I think I had like an evening where I was like, Mary, I am too sick to play video games. Put a film on for my poor misery body. So she put Little Miss Sunshine on. It's really good. I really liked it. It's a film that I've known about for years. It's got a very striking yellow like cover art and box, and but I never knew who was in it, and I just assumed it was something to do. I guess like I thought it was like a road trip involving like a little family van, and it is that. But I had no idea that it was actually about like a beauty pageant called Little Miss Sunshine. It was a very lovely film. It was nice to see some young Steve Carell after watching The Patient, which is like old white-haired grandpa Steve Carell. And it was just genuinely a really lovely time.
Yeah, I got introduced to it through Laura. Laura showed me it, and I really liked it. It was very good. It's a film that deals with the weirdness of sexualizing children in a totally appropriate way, which is
Oh my God, yeah.
a really like, a really excellent accolade for it is that they handle that topic and you don't come out of it being like, that film's fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, a lot of fun, very silly. I like the punchline at the end, and yeah, I understand why it's a film worth liking to this day.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to our final section of the show, which is our random Netflix movie section. And this month we watched a documentary called Magic Medicine. And for those of you who tune in every month with the hope of listening to us absolutely rag on a dreadful film that we've been chosen to watch through the Netflix randomizer, I'm going to disappoint you all because this is a pretty straight down the line, somewhat interesting documentary about a medical trial. It basically follows the UK's first medical trial into using, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, psychocillin or
Psilocybin?
psilocybin, that's the one, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms to treat depression. And it sort of follows 3 members of this trial, interviewing the before, during, and after, and you get to see a bit of the actual process. What did you think, Jonas?
Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought it was good in the sense that it was like I felt good about watching it. I felt good about following those stories. I felt that they had value, that it was important to know that those experiences like happened. What I found interesting about Magic Medicine is it is a lot more interested in giving you quite a sort of there's very little like narration used to try and taint like or give you context to what you're about to see. Everything that you see is just people like saying exactly what they want to say at whatever time that they want to say it. And in that sense, it feels like it's just kind of presenting information at you and letting you kind of come to your own conclusion about it. And in this case, the information it largely presents to you is less to do with the drug, the magic mushroom, the psilocybin, and more to do with 3 people's awful, awful, awful experience with depression. And, and then what the whole point of the documentary is obviously to talk to them before, where they have all had various experiences with their depression. They've all been depressed for quite long times. They've either got families or relationships that kind of hinge on like their mental state, like quite heavily, or relationships that are heavily affected by those mental states. And kind of documenting the fact that there is, despite all the modern medicine, despite all the antidepressants, despite therapy and counseling and all the help that they've tried in the past, depression is still ruining their lives. And then the film just starts with the basic premise: we're going to trial magic mushrooms on these people. Let's see what conversations we have with them throughout that process. And I found that incredibly quite moving, because it was less interested in trying to tell me about magic mushrooms. It was less interested in like selling me on something, and it was kind of more interested in just kind of showing me these 3 people's results. That said, there is obviously a lot of filtering that can happen in what information it chooses to tell me and not tell me.
You've jumped ahead to what I was about to say. Yeah.
Yes, and yeah, so yeah, you go in.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I think, and I want to preface this by saying that I agree with what I feel its conclusion is, which is that we're in a situation where these things probably should be studied to help with things like depression and stuff like that, and it presents a pretty compelling case for these people getting some significant benefit out of this. But it's a fairly uncritical look at this, I feel. Like, it shows the things that happen, and it sort of vaguely talks about concerns that people have had, but it almost pays lip service to those things and brushes over them fairly quickly. Whenever anyone mentions that this might not have a lasting effect, it drops that and then moves on. Early on, it talks about people's sort of concerns and problems with like the scheduling of drugs and how they got scheduled in the first place, but you don't talk to anyone who's on the other side of it. You don't ever see any of that kind of thing. And again, I want to stress that I think they're right. I do think that they're right. I think that these things are too highly scheduled and that we should be researching this kind of stuff. But in we can't avoid the fact that this is definitely a documentary from one point of view, and it very much presents a very specific view of what they think how effective they think this will be. That being said, I think the stuff about the actual experiences and the actual like first-hand experiences of these 3 people who go through it is absolutely fascinating, and whatever their sort of skew they wanted to put on it, viewing those things, I think in itself is a really interesting and like worthwhile thing that they've documented.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Yeah, as you say, like there is like a mission statement to this entire product, and what it would like you to take away from this, right, is that there is merit to this drug, to psilocybin, and psychedelics as a whole being used in depression treatment. And I think it's trying to spin up a conversation where people talk about this stuff more openly. Like, it wants you to go away, and the next time someone says to you, magic mushrooms are bad, it wants you to like pull out this documentary and say, oh, you should watch magic mushrooms. That will change your mind on that subject. And I think, yes, there is a validity in trying to destigmatize, right? Like, well, trying to make anything a topic of conversation, or at least, most things are obviously things that are just abhorrent and we shouldn't normalize them.
Like Jeff Dunham's puppet shows.
Like Jeff Dunham's puppet shows and Coffee and Kareem's normalization of child molestation. But like, yeah, magic medicine is trying to open the door to this idea that it's like, there is a lot of merit in the fact that drugs that we know we shouldn't just be on the street like taking them. We know they shouldn't be available to like general consumption and public use, but these drugs do have fascinating, like scientific potential that we just are never able to actually even skim the surface of. And it really wants to open a dialogue about that. It really wants us to walk away from this and be sold on the idea that we should be considering psychedelics more positively in terms of medicinal and scientific trialing and research and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it has a pretty specific brief, and I think it executes on it fairly well. I think
Yeah.
that I think that this is something that I would recommend to people who want information on this thing, but I don't think I would recommend it as something to change someone's mind, mainly because it is so one-sided. And I think
Yeah.
that this is one of those things where, I'm always conscious when I talk about things that pump up my existing worldview, because for everything like that I agree with, there's something that says that that Trump is God King, that someone uncritically, that someone on the other side of the aisle says to me, here's what proves my point. And we need to be aware that the things that we agree with have their biases and their lenses that they're put through, that there is always someone who was sat in the edit deciding what was going to go in and what wasn't going to go in and how we were going to do this. That being said, I think that it doesn't open with the mission statement, we believe drugs should be scheduled differently, but that is clear, I think, in its ethos, and it executes on that fairly well. And I don't think it's actively duplicitous. I just think it's not necessarily rounded in a way that I don't think everything should be. I don't want to stand here and say the only true documentary is one that presents every side. Sometimes that's not how these things work. But I don't think we should go into it thinking it's the whole truth necessarily. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the best thing I found about magic medicine was people talking really honestly about their depression.
That I agree. I think that part of it is fascinating. Hearing people talk about their experience with extreme depression, and hearing like there's a guy who gets a very good result from it, and then sort of falls into remission, not into remission, sorry, relapses basically, and falls back into a deep depression. And hearing his family talk about going through that was quite fascinating and dark. Yeah, no, I agree. Well, yeah.
Otherwise, like, this is in earnest just one of the most kind of like genuine things that we've had to watch as part of the Netflix review, right?
I agree.
Like, there's really nothing slapstick about it. None of these people's experiences like should be laughed at. Like, they are going through really horrible like mental health issues, and the whole point of this trial was them basically desperately seeking an answer that no other method has been able to give them up until this point. And regardless of how the documentary chooses to paint its like answer to that question, and its relationship to that kind of like mission statement, which is obviously really biased, what those people go through was very real and genuinely, it was a good thing to have seen. Like, it was,
I agree.
I feel better having had that experience, on the basis that we both are like, we are both aware that we are being presented like a very one-sided story, but those human experiences were very much really quite honest.
I agree. Definitely a contender for best Netflix movie of the year already.
The competition is
It's going up against Coffee and Kareem. All right. It's time for picking next month's film, and the Netflix randomizers for next month have been here the whole time. They've
what do you mean
been
the whole time?
in the background of the shot for the entire show. They're in this tub. They've been there the whole
No.
time.
And I like, for audio listeners, that tub has been emitting like a really low hum frequency, just so that you could feel like it was there the whole time, and
Yeah.
you were never perceiving it.
Yeah. This is it, guys. We could have right from the offset known what we were going to have, and we didn't. So this is what we're having this month. But
Right, that's a bit of paper that you've held up and you're putting
yeah,
to the side.
but we're going to go through the others as we always do. So we are not watching this month. John Mulaney, Kid Gorgeous at Radio City, a fairly well reviewed stand-up comedy show.
Okay. I think I would have liked John Mulaney more than I like most stand-ups. That's a
Yeah,
shame.
I agree. We're not watching Son of the Midnight Sun, or in its native tongue, Midnattsolensund, a Swedish drama documentary about a Sami couple, Scandinavian Arctic native people. Oh, we're not watching
Okay.
that. We're not watching The Right to Love, also known as Ratten at Alska, another Swedish film about a liberal male professor whose daughter wants an abortion. We're not watching The Souvenir, an English drama set in the 80s. Okay. We're not watching Forgive Us Our Trespasses, a 14-minute film about a boy with a limb difference living in Nazi Germany.
A 14-minute film.
Yep.
Jamie, this randomizer is bullshit sometimes.
We're not watching Perdida, a Spanish police thriller.
A Spanish police thriller.
Yeah. We're not watching. We could have had the Emoji Movie.
I love how
Laura
this
writes
fucking-
descriptions of these things, and she's just written "lol" as the description for this.
I love how the Netflix randomizer has become a vehicle for like three things: Bollywood movies, stand-up specials, and like fucking kids films, man.
I wish we'd have had the Emoji Movie.
Barbie,
Man, oh man.
Peppa Pig. We could have had Emoji Movie. I feel like there's like one other that I'm forgetting somewhere, but
So we
It's
are
fun.
watching this month DTC Yukamur Junjo Hen from High and Low.
oh my
This
God,
is a Japanese road trip film. It has
What
no ratings info on the website that we use to randomize.
Okay, can you read the title for me again?
DTC. Yukimuri.
Yukimuri. Yeah. Because you went Yukimura.
No, I went Yukimen because I read the R and the I as an N.
Okay.
IMDb. Here we go.
Genjo Hen
It's got a 7.1
from High and Low.
on DTC. Yukimuri Junjo Hen from High and Low. Dan, Tetsu, and Chiharu, DTC, were exhausted after all those exciting days. Yet what awaits them is an extremely boring life. In order to seek for excitement and youth, and girls, the trio goes on a motorcycle trip without a specific destination, but they soon spend all their money and have to do part-time jobs in a hotel at a hot spring resort. There they meet the young proprietress, Mari, and her only daughter, Megumi. I won't read the rest.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like the summary is so long, it might actually be the whole film's plot.
Yeah, it might very well be. Is this like...
This is like a Japanese road trip film. No, well, no, because they end up somewhere and
I'm wondering if these people are like from a TV show or something.
the poster makes it look like they might be a boy band.
Yeah, I think that they might be from a band called High and Low.
Oh my God, there's several movies. High and Low, The Red Rain. High and Low, End of Sky, the movie 2. High and Low, Final Mission, the movie 3.
Oh yeah.
Road to High and Low, High and Low. I think we're about to enter like a whole undiscovered corner of like Japanese cinema.
I'm gonna Google High and Low Japanese movies.
Who are these people?
High and Low, the movie. So I presume this is the original one. It's a Japanese action film. It's the first original film of the High and Low franchise, following the story. Oh, so there was a television series called High and Low: The Story of Sword, and then they made a series of movies that's about
Okay.
gang violence. So on TV, there was High and Low: The Story of Sword, High and Low: The DTC, which presumably are the characters that we will meet.
Dan Tetsu Chiharu.
Yeah.
DTC. I got it.
Then there was a season called The Worst Episode, High and Low: The Best Bout, 6 from High and Low: The Worst. And then the movies are Road to High and Low the movie, High and Low: The Red Rain, High and Low the movie 2, End of Sky, High and Low the movie Final Mission, DTC, Yukamuri, Junjo Hen from High and Low, High and Low: The Worst, High and Low: The Worst X. Then there was an anime, there was a studio album.
Dear Lord, what have we stumbled on?
High and Low: The Live.
I think this could be far more enjoyable than the Emoji Movie because this has got capacity.
There was a manga. There was a game.
We could become the #1 English-speaking high and low podcast review show.
Okay, Jonas, for next month, we both need to review one of the High and Low series. We both need to review a High and Low movie that isn't the Netflix movie we're about to watch, and then we'll both play the High and Low game. High and Low, the game, Another World.
Oh, mobile games. Oh my god. Not to mention,
an
I'll watch the
ARPG.
anime.
So if you go to highandlowthegame.com, it just takes you to a WordPress site fully in Japanese that just presents Japanese clickbait.
Okay. Official website in Japan. I mean, I think I'm on their movie. Yeah, I'm on their movie
Takeshi
website.
Yoshikawa's wife, in brackets, wife, is beautiful, and her 2 children, in brackets, daughters, are cute. Her father is a former politician.
In brackets, politician.
I like wife, in brackets, wife.
I'm wondering if it's trying to translate something for you.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
This is so great. Like the absolute discography of these people is crazy. Not to mention, so these characters are from a Japanese Tokyo biker gang. Mary and I are really enjoying an anime called Tokyo Revengers, which is about a Tokyo biker gang. So there are lots of themes here that I'm going to recognize because that's an entire subculture.
So this page on Wikipedia lists all of the gangs in the world of High and Low, and they all have their own theme song. And the gangs are Mugen, the Amiyaya brothers, Sano Rengokai, the Hoodlum Squad, DTC, White Rascals, Oya Kuko, the Part-Time School, the Full-Time School, Rude Boys, Daruma Ika, Mighty Warriors, Kuryu Group, Ichigo Milk, Chanson, and Doubt.
Oh, and don't forget Prison Gang.
Prison Gang. There's a gang just called Doubt. The vicious gang that kidnapped and sold women. This naturally puts them at odds with the chivalrous White Rascals. Naturally.
Naturally. Man, I fucking love this entire corner of the internet we find.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna go on the game website.
That is
so clickbait, isn't it?
This podcast has fully gone off the rails. Just prolonged chat about Bill Nye movies, and now we're talking about From High and Low.
Oh. This is the best.
All right. Well, we should finish up there. Thank you for watching and listening, everybody. If you're listening to this in the audio version, you can catch us on the first Tuesday of every month, assuming we do stream on the actual first Tuesday of the month, on twitch.tv/The Bunyip Man. But you can find out if we're going to do it on that day or not by following us on Twitter at The Bunyip Review. And if you're watching us live right now on Twitch, you can find this podcast on all good podcast sites. Just search The Bunyip Review and you'll find us. And when you do find us, could you just, you just chuck your own little review. Just try out reviewing. Just review the podcast for us. It helps us grow, helps people find us. And as well, I'd like you to tell I would like you to tell your friend that you feel would be the most likely to have seen the Japanese films High and Low. And even if you think none of your friends would have seen it, pick the one you think would be the most likely out of those
Pick
people.
the friend who would be the least offended by the concept that you think that they would be the most likely friend to have watched High and Low. So
Yeah.
all of my friends, I would be that person. But now I'm actually about to become the most likely person to have watched High and Low.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything else that we need to say at the end of the podcast, Jonas?
I love you.
I love you too.
That was to the audience.
Oh, yeah, that was to the audience too.
Oh, cool, great. Would it be weird if you said it to me?
Yeah.
Is there a no? No, there isn't.
Bye, friends.
If you're still listening, stop it. Go home.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
What a fucking podcast.
That is a podcast. We haven't actually hit 3 hours because I've been recording for 2 hours and 49 minutes.
Okay, all
We
right.
could have got another 10 minutes. Should we
Yeah.
go back?
No, I don't think so. I think the Bill Nye section is powerful enough to carry.
I think Weird Daddy Assassin or something is going to end up being the title.
Weird Daddy Assassin Carer or something. Hello,
Yeah.
Brioche. Welcome. We literally just finished Brioche.
You
but
just
welcome
finished the
in.
podcast, yeah. But yeah, no, come, step inside, get out the rain, make yourself comfortable while we wrap up.
All right. Jonas, you have got any schedule for this week? Anything you need to talk about before we go?
I don't know that I'll stream this week. I'm just not streaming much at all. It's just not my priority. That said, next week is my birthday. So I'll post my bank account details in chat for everyone to pay homage. No, the new Zelda comes out next week, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
And because that's on the Switch and that's going to be like one of the biggest releases of the year, my first touch of that game, I might stream it just because I think it would be fun to go through the opening of that game live and go through it with people on stream. I might even take a day off work and just like stream the whole day for it or something. I don't know yet.
That'd be cool.
But I would like to share that with people if possible. Otherwise, any streams I do will be completely and utterly unannounced, and I won't give you any warning. So follow me on Twitter, and that's the only. Or actually, just follow me on Twitch and turn the notification bell on. You'll only get one notification a month for it, so it's not that bad. Just do it.
There you go. For me, schedule-wise, we're not around tomorrow as I have a leaving do for someone at work, but we will be around on Thursday. Beth is not here. She's off doing birthday things for her own birthday. So we might not do Monkey Island because I think she's really enjoying it. We might do something else. I think Luke is around.
Be on the long night.
I'll be on the long night. What?
Beyond the Long Night, the Yogscast game that you need to play.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that as a game that you could play on Thursday.
That's true, but I'll probably pick something that Luke wants to play. We'll see. We'll see what Luke wants to do. Because normally when it's just me and Luke, we do Sea of Thieves. But that was a lag fest last time. With Luke being in Australia, so.
What could you do? I'm just looking at what are very Luke games that have come out recently. But
I'll be honest, if Luke isn't able to make it, I'll probably stream Shadows of Doubt.
Yeah, could you do Dredge? Could that not happen on a Thursday?
No, Laura will be taking for this show.
Damn. I mean, Shadows of Doubt would be good fun. So
yeah, people can help me solve some murders. Literally, where I saved it just before the stream, I was in a building. Doing it like just a normal mission you can take off the notice board, and I just got a thing that said a murder has happened, and it said the address. It was literally a few floors above me, and I was like, oh, okay.
I like because the world is simulated. You can bump into the killer like while they're in the middle of doing murders, and not know that that's the murder you're going to be told about in 2 minutes.
I didn't mention it in my review, and I should have mentioned it. But when I was wandering around, I saw a woman with very angry eyebrows just carrying a knife, just like hunched over carrying a knife. And then I followed her for a bit because I was like, she's definitely on her way to commit a murder. I'll just follow her and catch her. And then she just walks into a laundromat and just opens a washing machine, just starts doing her laundry while holding a knife.
I was stood out in the rain when I was still learning, getting to grips with the game, and someone just like started walking out to me holding a knife, and I was like, "Oh God, they're gonna stab me!" And then they just walked past me, and like I don't know, they just went like to a bar or something, and I was like, "I don't know what to do with this information," so I just left them
I don't know
alone.
how this world works.
There was no murder for me to solve at the time, so I was like,
It's like they haven't actually done anything wrong. They're just...
it's like, who am I to just assume that everyone holding a knife is an eventual murderer?
Oh dear.
Yeah.
I really want to stream Lego Island. I fucking loved that game as a kid.
What is Lego Island?
Have you not seen Lego Island? Oh, it's a
Lego
fever
Island.
dream. It's incredible.
Is it
Leg-
on?
It was.
Steam?
I played it on PC, but
It's not on Steam.
no, it existed as a physical disc, and that was it. Lego Island is a game where you are on a Lego Island, and there's various mini games, right, that you can play, like driving around a racetrack or like delivering pizzas. And there's multiple different characters you can play, and when you play different characters, you have access to different like mini games. But the central core plot of the thing can only be experienced if you happen to do a certain thing, which is if you play the pizza delivery kid, you're given a mission to deliver a pizza to a prisoner called the Brickulator, I think his name is, and there's a sign outside his prison that says no pizza, but the pizza delivery boy is dyslexic, so he can't read it. So he delivers the pizza to this guy. He's ordered a pizza with so many peppers on it that he breaks out of prison, and he proceeds to dismantle the whole island and this goes from like a sort of absurd, weird Lego fun game where you can do all sorts of things. You could never experience this if you didn't want to. You could just play this weird Lego fun game. It descends into a like mad Lego nightmare where if you can't beat it, and it was quite difficult to beat because you sort of move with tank controls, you just can't. You just live in this nightmare Lego world for a while. There's like alarms going off. There's like, you just watch people running away and getting like brickulated. It's fucking bonkers.
Where do the peppers come into this?
He uses the hot peppers on the pizza to slice his way out of prison.
Never mind. Yeah, I asked.
It's great. It was a great game. And then they did a Lego Island 2, which had like an actual story, and it wasn't as good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how to process everything you've just said to me, so I'm sort of just going to remain in a vegetative state.
One day I'll stream it and I'll bring you in and show you Lego Island.
Is it better than Bad Rats?
Oh yeah, much better. Much better.
Because Bad Rats is the best thing that we've ever played. So.
Lego Island genuinely was one of my favorite gaming experiences as a child ever. There's like a driving game where you can go to the race course and you oh my god, it had like actual building mechanics, so you could build your own car or your own vehicle or your own buildings or things like that, and you actually like connected bricks to build things, and you would build a race car and then do the hardest fucking race course imaginable, like having to do this. It was such a good game. Absolute classic. I'll find a copy. And then I'll deliver it to your house and force you to play it.
I want to get off. I want to get off Mr. Lego's Wild Ride.
All right. Well, enough of these distractions. It's time to stop.
Enough of these japes and games. It's time to go to bed.
Night, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the stream.
Good night, friends.
Bye.
Bye-bye.